What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
8 EC. Chapter 91 Farewell Hancock. Advertise here. In the evening, everyone had a happy bonfire party on the beach of Crocodile. The huge sea kings were not even enough for everyone to share. Under the moonlight, Hancock and Monet looked at Lin Chen, who was having a drink with Rayleigh and others, with their eyes shining brightly. How are you, brothers? 3 peach gardens. 4 seasons of fortune, 5 leaders, 6 and 6 successes. Drink. Seeing that old man Rayleigh was losing in a drinking competition, Lin Chen would not let go of this opportunity. He picked up the wine glass and poured it into Rayleigh's mouth. I'm still an old man. Don't move your hands and feet. Gurgling. Ahem. After a while, several people were mingling happily. Wine bottles were flying everywhere. Lin Chen, Rayleigh, Crocodile, and Enel all had purple and blue faces. Hancock blinked at the scene in front of him and asked Monet beside him, have they always been like this? Hearing Hancock's words, Monet glanced at her and didn't dare to stare anymore. He looked at Lin Chen and the others and said, yeah, sometimes I envy them too, but it's a pity that I'm a girl and can't be with them. They're together. Hancock thought for a moment and then continued to ask, how long have you been together? After hearing Hancock's words, Monet was stunned for a moment, and his face turned pink. Then he realized that he had misunderstood the meaning, and said with evasive eyes, it's been 3 or 4 years, but for 3 years, brother Lin Chen was a people or outside. Hearing Monet's words, Hancock murmured softly, 3 or 4 years. Monet glanced at Hancock without knowing why, leaving her with only a beautiful profile. The two of them fell into silence, and it was a little quiet for a while. Only Lin Chen's voice could be heard from a distance from time to time. It wasn't until the dawn of dawn slowly appeared from the distant sea level that Lin Chen and the others fell into a deep sleep. Looking at the scene in front of him, Monet shook his head and chuckled, got up and started cleaning silently. He was used to this kind of thing. Let me help you too. Hancock's voice came from the side, and Monet was a little surprised. Just leave this kind of thing to me, you are a guest. Hearing Monet's words, Hancock's eyes showed a hint of cunning, and he said, we are already companions, aren't we? Monet was stunned when he heard Hancock's words, and then understood that Hancock was talking about her alliance with Dawn. Seeing that Monet didn't move, Hancock took care of himself and started cleaning. Monet stopped trying to persuade him, and the two quickly cleaned up the mess created by Lin Chen and others. Before Hancock could rest for a few minutes, the Daughter Island ship arrived next to him. Sister Hancock, we are worried about you. We are also afraid that something will happen to you. It was the warriors of the 9 Snakes pirates who spoke. These were the ones who escaped with Hancock, and they all called each other sisters. Hancock also treats them differently from others and takes extra care of them. Sister, we should go back. There are still many things to deal with today. Upon hearing the urging, Hancock glanced at Lin Chen who was sleeping with a look of reluctance on his face, but in the end he followed everyone back to his daughter's island. As a king, she had to deal with a lot of things every day, especially after driving away all those aunts yesterday, her pressure instantly increased. It was not until noon that Lin Chen and the others woke up slowly. He also learned from Monet that Hancock had left. After washing his face and regaining consciousness, Lin Chen also began to plan for the future. 3 days later. At this time, Hancock was standing in front of Lin Chen, his eyes full of reluctance. Behind him was the port of Daughter Island. Can I really not go with you? Are we not companions anymore? I want to act with you too. Hearing Hancock's words, Lin Chen smiled bitterly and said, have you forgotten what I told you at the beginning? I remember it all. Okay, tell me, I am the Shadow of Dawn. One day in the future, when the world government recruits me as the 7 warlords of the sea, I cannot refuse. I will sneak in and respond to your plan in the future. After hearing Hancock's answer, Lin Chen nodded with satisfaction. It's not that he won't take Hancock with him. A country as big as Daughter's Island still needs Hancock to preside over it, and the world government has begun to pay attention to this place and has already sent people to recruit Hancock to become the 7 warlords of the sea. Lin Chen also took advantage of this. Even bringing Hancock would not be a big addition to the entire combat force. It would be better to let her join the 7 warlords of the sea, so that he could also put his hand in the Shichibukai. If Lin Chen came into contact with Eagle Eye, he believed that with Eagle Eye's character, he would probably say it doesn't matter, let's have a fight and let me see how your swordsmanship has improved over the years. Thinking of this, Lin Chen couldn't help but shudder. It would be better to push back the contact with Eagle Eye. But in this way, 2 people in Shichibukai will be friends with him, and they may play an important role in the future. And that guy Doflamingo seems to have begun to seek the position of Shichibukai, but Lin Chen will not let him obtain this position so easily, which is the reason for going to New World this time. Looking at Hancock's somewhat red eyes, Lin Chen sighed in his heart and said, let's say goodbye now. We will meet again in the future. Hancock said nothing, just stood there, as if waiting for something. Lin Chen reached out and touched Hancock's head and said, I'm leaving, okay, go back quickly. Feeling the familiar feeling on his head, Hancock felt a little disappointed but still looked very happy. With one last look at Hancock, Lin Chen turned and left the port, leaving only Hancock's back. Let's go to Sabayati Archipelago to coat the ship. Then go to the Fishman Island to have a look. Crocodile heard Lin Chen's words and began to turn the rudder. Enel also increased the power input at the stern of the ship. Soon the speed of the dawn increased and slowly disappeared on the sea level. Lin Chen stood at the stern of the boat and glanced into the distance, and could still vaguely see Hancock's figure. Well, leaving a sigh, Lin Chen turned around and left here. Previously, I learned from informants that the current situation at the Fishman Island does not seem to be very good. There are many conflicts both internally and externally. This also made Lin Chen speed up, hoping to reach the Fishman Island earlier. Chapter 92 The Strangeness of the Fishman Island. Advertise here. After a period of sailing, Lin Chen also arrived at the Fishman Island after being coated in Sabayati Archipelago. When passing through the Sabayati Archipelago, he was even chased by the Dalmatian who was guarding there, but a few people quickly left him behind and fled. Compared with the Fishman Island a few years ago, the Fishman Island now is full of a chilling atmosphere. When Lin Chen and others set foot here again, the eyes of the fishmen around them faintly exuded evil looks. Crocodile looked at the murlocs around him and felt a little unhappy. He curled his lips and said, what do these murlocs mean? It's really unpleasant. The same was true for the rest of the people, and the fishman's hateful gaze made everyone feel a little uncomfortable. Lin Chen didn't care what these fishmen thought of them. The moment he stepped into the Fishman Island, he sensed a flying thunder god warlock. After thinking about it, it seemed that it was a gift given to Shirahoshi back then. Lao Sha, go and inform Neptune and Odahime that we are here to visit. I have something to do and I will leave for a while. The crocodile people nodded, and then Lin Chen left a flying thunder god warlock on Crocodile's sand crocodile and said, I'll be back later, and try not to cause trouble here. Lin Chen pointed the direction to Crocodile and watched them leave. He glanced at the surrounding murlocs and disappeared in a flash. Darkness and dampness were Lin Chen's first feelings. Everything he looked at was pitch black. It took a while for his eyes to gradually adapt to the darkness. The ground is also undulating slowly, and its texture is also very soft. A pair of big light bulbs suddenly lit up in the darkness, and at the same time a little Loli's voice came. Who are you? Lin Chen looked at the huge eyes in front of him, and then looked at himself as if he was stepping on someone. Leaving Shirahoshi's body, Lin Chen looked at the huge mermaid in front of him and said, Are you Shirahoshi? How do you know my name, but I don't know you? Your mother and I are friends. Oh, hello uncle. After glancing around, Lin Chen was a little confused and asked, Why do you live in this place? Shirahoshi thought for a while and said in a childish voice, Mom said there are bad people outside, so let me stay here. Lin Chen frowned even more when he heard Shirahoshi's words. The Fishman Island should not be so dangerous now. As a child of Neptune, Shirahoshi should be well protected no matter what. This is the only way to survive in this environment. Do you want to get out of here? After hearing Lin Chen's words, Shirahoshi's eyes became brighter, filled with hope. I want to, but Mom won't let me leave here casually. It's okay, Uncle is very powerful and can protect you. Hearing Lin Chen's words, Shirahoshi suddenly became excited and said, Really? Can Uncle help my mother fight off the bad guys? I haven't seen my mother in a long time. No problem, I'll take you out first. As he spoke, a ball of white light appeared on Lin Chen's hand, and when he swept it around, the room suddenly became brighter, and Lin Chen could clearly see the 5 or 6-year-old Shirahoshi in front of him. She has long flowing pink curly hair, a taiyaki-shaped hair accessory on her head, a pair of shell-shaped earrings, bright blue eyes, a beautiful appearance, and a lower body with alternating shades of pink fishtails. He also wore a crystal necklace around his neck, and inside the necklace was the flying thunder god Kanai that Lin Chen had given him back then. There's a situation. Be careful of enemy attacks. Along with Lin Chen's destruction, the movement also attracted soldiers from a distance, who all ran over to check the situation. Turning to look at Shirahoshi, Lin Chen stretched out his hand and said, Let's go, I'll take you to find your mother first. Shirahoshi glanced around worriedly, timidly put his hand on Lin Chen's, and then the two disappeared. Dear Li Xiao, I didn't know you were here, so I'm really scared. I don't know what you need, we are willing to help. In the Fishman Palace at this time, Neptune hurriedly arranged his clothes and looked at the people in front of him nervously. No wonder he was nervous. Dawn's reputation in recent days was too vicious. Facing these powerful men, Neptune felt uncertain and could only greet them with the most humble and respectful attitude. Crocodile frowned and glanced around. The fishmen around him had a hint of disgust in their eyes, which made him feel very depressed. But thinking of what Lin Chen told him before leaving, he temporarily suppressed the anger in his heart, looked at Neptune in front of him and said, I came here to look for Tiger, where is he now? Upon hearing Crocodile's words, Neptune's face froze, and the other fishmen around him also looked strange. Tiger is not here at the moment. I heard that you also have something to ask me about. It's the same as what I said. A female voice came, and Otahime walked out from behind the palace, but her face was a little pale. Otahime. Neptune saw Otahime appear, stood up and helped her over. You are obviously still recuperating, why are you here? Neptune's voice was very faint, but it could not escape the ears of Crocodile. Otahime held Neptune's hands and said nothing. After glancing at Crocodile and others, she was a little confused and said, it's a pity that we didn't meet the legendary leader Madara. You want to see me so much. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Chen appeared next to Crocodile, holding Shirahoshi in one hand. Shirahoshi. Let her go. The appearance of Lin Chen and Shirahoshi made Nipton and Otahime turn pale, panicked, and had bad guesses in their eyes. Seeing the reactions of the two people, Lin Chen said, where is Tiger? Hand him over and I will return Shirahoshi to you. Hearing Lin Chen's words, Otahime turned pale and pinched the corners of her clothes tightly with her fingers. Then she looked at Lin Chen and said coldly, you are a world-famous strong man, how can you do such a thing? Take a 6-year-old girl making threats is not something a strong man like you would do. You don't need to provoke me, I just want to know where Tiger is and let him come out. As he spoke, Lin Chen burst out with a wave of haki, making all the fishmen present look frightened. No wonder Lin Chen did this, people are unpredictable. He had already expected that this scene might happen today after ordering Tiger to go back. Tiger was destined to have conflicts with Otahime after he was instilled in him the idea of fighting against the world government and hating the celestial dragons. Although he originally asked Tiger to try his best to change Otahime's thoughts and ideas, looking at the current situation, it seems that he has failed. Stuck on another chapter, Chapter 93 The Riot on the Fishman Island. Shirahoshi wanted to break free from Lin Chen's big hand, but was helpless. He looked at Lin Chen with tearful eyes and cried, Uncle, let me go. I want to go to my mother. Ignoring Shirahoshi, Lin Chen stared at Otahime calmly, but the words in his mouth made everyone present tremble. Let Tiger come out to see me immediately, otherwise you won't be able to bear our anger, or are you saying that the Fishman Island no longer wants to exist in this world? Otahime bit her lip and trembled, staring at the people in front of her and yelling unwillingly, you are all a bunch of lunatics. You were the reason why Tiger became like that when he came back. Looking at the powerless woman in front of him, Lin Chen felt no emotion in his heart. The Fishman Island is too important to him, and anyone who becomes an obstacle to him will become his enemy. Shirahoshi looked at his mother blankly, tears constantly falling down, but he still couldn't break away from Lin Chen's big hand. You are a bad guy. Let me go. Woohoo. Looking at her daughter's appearance, Otahime's heart felt like it was being cut by a knife, and she spoke with difficulty, I hand over Tiger to you, and let my daughter Shirahoshi go. After saying all this, Otahime seemed to have been drained of all her strength and collapsed into Neptune's arms. The eyes of the surrounding fishmen showed an indescribable light, and Lin Chen saw all of this. Tiger was brought up after a while, but he didn't seem to be doing well at this time. The whole body was covered with white bandages, with bloodline seeping out from many places, and Tiger himself also had a fierce light in his eyes. Otahime looked at Tiger with a flash of pain in her eyes. She was very sad that her once most trusted friend had turned into this. Pushing himself up, Otahime looked at Lin Chen and said, okay, Tiger has been brought here, now it's time to let Shirahoshi go. Lin Chen didn't break his promise and let go of the big hand that had been restraining Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi ran towards Otahime crying. It's okay, Shirahoshi, Mom is here. Mom, it hurts so much. That uncle pinched me so much. Ignoring the mother and daughter beside him, Lin Chen looked at Tiger in front of him and said, Tiger. After hearing Lin Chen's words, Tiger's eyes slowly regained some clarity. When he saw Lin Chen's clothes clearly, he became excited. Master Madara, you are finally here. I have been waiting for a long time. Take revenge on the world government and celestial dragons. Only by killing them all can the Fishman Island survive better. Seeing Tiger looking a little crazy, Lin Chen said nothing, while Otahime couldn't help but scolded Tiger looking at him. Tiger, are you going to destroy the efforts we have made? I have worked so hard to make the fish and humans coexist better, but everything changed after you came back. You are no longer the benevolent Tiger you used to be. Look what you have turned the Fishman Island into over the years. You are also colluding with other fishmen outside in an attempt to complete your so-called revenge idea. Tiger was stunned when he heard Otahime's words, then looked at Otahime angrily and said, ha 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 ha, you shouldn't talk so much nonsense if you haven't been tortured by celestial dragons. If you haven't seen fellow Murlocs being played with and thrown away as toys, then you shouldn't attach your so-called benevolence and righteousness to every fellow Murloc. Is everything you have done worthy of the compatriots who were abused? Is everything you have done worthy of those fellow fishmen who have always been looked down upon by humans? I, Tiger, am a madman, but I will not show mercy and expect humans to treat us equally. How ridiculous. The hatred between fish people and humans can only be solved through violence. Let humans know how to be slaves. How does it feel? Let humans know how it feels to be regarded as inferior creatures all the time. Only in this way can humans always remember the consequences of underestimating the Murlocs. Only in this way can we gain permanent peace for the Murlocs. The palace was extremely silent, and no one expected the tit-for-tat confrontation between Tiger and Otahime. After Tiger said all this, it seemed as if all the frustration in his heart had been vented. Then he looked at Lin Chen and said respectfully, Master Madara, the opportunity to occupy the Fishman Island is now at your fingertips. Otahime still can't see clearly. In this situation, we have no choice but to use force. I have been waiting for this day for a long time. When Tiger spoke, Neptune and Otahime turned pale, and everyone else was waiting for Lin Chen's answer. It could be said that Lin Chen's next words were related to the future fate of the Fishman Island. You know, with Dawn's current strength, it's almost effortless to take down the Fishman Island. Just when Lin Chen was about to speak, an explosion suddenly came from outside, accompanied by a burst of sound. Ha 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 ha, Tiger, you are really useless. You were captured by Otahime. If that guy Jones hadn't told me that you were taken from prison to the palace, I might not have come to rescue you. Who would have done it? Let you be the spiritual leader of the fish people now. As the voice fell, a fish man with 4 legs and an explosive head walked in, followed by a strong fish man. Otahime was shocked to see the man in front of her, and after taking another look at Shirahoshi, her eyes were filled with worry and fear. Vander Decken Ix, why are you here? After Vander glanced at Otahime, his eyes were attracted by Shirahoshi beside him. Sister Shirahoshi, I didn't expect you to be here. I said why can't I find you? I worked so hard to find you. Accept my love, I will always be waiting for you. Shirahoshi looked at the person in front of him, his eyes full of fear, tears kept rolling around his eyes, and he soon started crying, holding Otahime and Neptune tightly with his hands. Mom, Dad, I'm scared. The 3 fishmen next to Neptune stood up and looked at Vander with angry expressions. That's enough. We will never allow you to bully your mother and little sister again. As if Otahime remembered something, she looked outside the door and called out to the soldiers. Come in and capture Vander. He. Naive Otahime, do you still think those people are obeying your orders? It's time for a change in the Fishman Island. Just like Tiger said, peace and respect are won by force. Yes, it's time to take revenge on humanity. As Vander raised his arms, a group of Murlocs suddenly appeared outside the door. Many of them had scars on their bodies, and some of them had the hoofs of the sky-soaring dragon printed on them. Standing between the two groups, Lin Chen looked at Vander, then at Otahime, and finally looked at Tiger beside him and asked, Is this your plan too? Tiger looked at Lin Chen blankly without saying anything, then turned to look at Vander and said angrily, How dare you lie to me? The Fishman Island can only be controlled by Madara, who do you think you are? What was promised at the beginning you will only help me spread my ideas, and you will not care about the Fishman Island. I didn't expect you to dare to seize power now. Vander looked at Tiger as if he were a fool and mocked. Ha 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 ha. Do you really think I would be so kind? It's too late to react until now. Chapter 94 Seizing Power. Lin Chen looked at the extremely arrogant fish man in front of him and didn't take it seriously at first. However, when he found that Vander's eyes were full of obscenity when he looked at Shirahoshi, he felt disgusted in his heart. Shirahoshi in the distance was still sobbing quietly, and his eyes looked at Lin Chen and Fanda with fear from time to time. In her eyes, Lin Chen and Fand were all the same type, bad guys who bullied their parents. Ha 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 ha, little Shirahoshi, don't cry anymore. When I take down the Fishman Island, I promise to give you the position of Wang Ji. Tiger wanted to say something more, but Lin Chen reached out to stop him. Madara-sama, seeing Tiger's confused look, Lin Chen shook his head. There was no point in having a verbal argument with Fanda now. Fanda has also been paying attention to Lin Chen and others. He has long known that these people are the famous Dawn, but looking at the current situation, it seems that Dawn will also get a share of the pie. Naturally, he would not be stupid enough to confront Li Xiao, and immediately expressed his loyalty. Madara-sama, I am the leader of the Flying Pirates and a target fruit user. I am willing to submit to Dawn and fight against the world government together. Of course, dear Madara, I have a small request. I hope that I can be given the title of King of the Fishman Island. This is just a false name. All affairs of the Fishman Island are decided by you. After hearing what Vander said, Tiger suddenly felt depressed. As long as Vander was willing to submit to breaking Dawn, he would be a member of the same camp from now on. If he wanted to settle accounts with him, he would have no chance. Seeing Vander's statement, Lin Chen said, Do you know who is protecting the Fishman Island now? Vander was stunned when he heard Lin Chen's words. After thinking for a while, a few drops of cold sweat flowed from his forehead and said, It's the Whitebeard Pirates. Lin Chen chuckled and asked, Then how do you think I compare with Whitebeard? Vander swallowed and replied nervously, Although Whitebeard is known as the strongest man in the world, but I still think you are stronger. Compared with being a pirate emperor who is free and easy, you the courage to resist the world government is the symbol of the most powerful person in the world. Crocodile looked sideways when he heard Vander's words. Although this guy didn't look like a good guy, he was good at flattering him. Without rushing to reply to Vander, Lin Chen looked at Tiger and asked the same question again. Who is sheltering in the Fishman Island now? Tiger said without hesitation, It's Dawn. Hearing Tiger's answer, Lin Chen nodded with satisfaction, and Vander's face instantly turned pale. Turning to look at Vander, Lin Chen said, although your answer is quite good, the Fishman Island does not need someone I am not familiar with to take charge of it, and I won't make it difficult for you. You can go. Vander said unwillingly. Please give me another chance. I will definitely become the vanguard of the counterattack against world government. Ignoring Vander, Lin Chen walked step by step towards the throne of the Fishman Island. Under pressure from Lin Chen, Neptune left with Otahime and stood silently beside the audience with his children. Neptune's eldest son Shark Star was a little indignant and couldn't help but said, Father. Do we really want to give up like this? Otahime quickly grabbed Shark Star and signaled him not to speak. Arriving at the throne, Lin Chen stroked the handle of the throne, and finally slowly sat on it, exuding a sense of majesty from his whole body. The Dragon Palace also fell into a stagnant silence. Neither Neptune nor the fishmen outside dared to speak anymore. Crocodile and the others looked at Lin Chen on the stage, and felt a little touched in their hearts, as if Lin Chen was born to be like this. Crocodile. Take over all affairs of the Fishman Island from today, and officially declare the Fishman Island to be owned by Dawn. At the same time, we warn the Marine, pirates and world government outside that if they dare to capture the residents of the Fishman Island again, slave, just wait for Dawn's full revenge. Enel, you are responsible for maintaining law and order on the Fishman Island. Any fishmen who dare to resist will be dealt with immediately. At the same time, be wary of those slave traders who are lucky enough to kill them on the spot as soon as they are discovered. Monet, you are responsible for eliminating all uneasy factors in the Fishman Island. I don't need other forces to intervene in the Fishman Island. Tiger, you are responsible for the ideological education of other fishmen. The peace and justice of the Fishman Island can only be achieved after the world government falls. I will lead you to hope at dawn. Orders were issued by Lin Chen one after another, and the others also knew Lin Chen's plan. There could only be one voice in the Fishman Island, and that person was Lin Chen. Otahime's eyes were filled with deathly silence, and Lin Chen's orders were like swords piercing her heart. She knew that from then on, the Fishman Island's hope of coexisting with humans no longer existed. Vander is equally disappointed as Otahime. His hope of seizing power in the Fishman Island has also been shattered. The failure to seize power means one thing. Shirahoshi will have nothing to do with him, unless. Lin Chen, who was sitting on the high platform, looked down at everyone, and the pleasure in his heart caused by power was quickly suppressed by him. This feeling of controlling life and death makes people want to stop, but he also knows that this is poison that corrodes the mind, and celestial dragons is like this. Crocodile and the others quickly received the order and left here. The transfer of power on the Fishman Island was completed in a short period of time, and most of the outside world did not know about it. The few people needed to be alert to all possible riots. In the end, only Rayleigh, Rocinante, Sugar and Luo, as well as the Flying Pirates and Neptune were left in the Dragon Palace. Before Lin Chen spoke, the Flying Pirates and Neptune did not dare to make any move. Everyone in the Flying Pirates didn't know Lin Chen's attitude towards them, and Neptune and the others could be said to have become prisoners in terms of status. After all, they had all been deprived of power, and the consequences could be imagined. And it's not like he hasn't thought about resisting Lin Chen, but is Lin Chen's strength really something he can match? Lin Chen's conqueror's haki alone can't be resisted by himself, not to mention Lin Chen's other moves. He also has a family to take care of. He just hopes that Lin Chen can treat his family well because he has no resistance. What no one noticed was that Shirahoshi was still sobbing non-stop next to Otahime. Otahime and the others just thought that Shirahoshi was still sad, but at this moment, an invisible wave of waves was faintly emanating from Shirahoshi's body, and the target was directly there. Refers to the depths of the sea. Chapter 95, Facing the Sea Kings. After issuing all the orders, Lin Chen looked at the people on both sides of the field, thought for a while and said to Vander, you can go. Considering that you have assisted Tiger, I will not pursue the following matters. Vander clenched his fist but then unclenched it, and finally bowed his head with a humble posture and said, Dear Lord Madara, I sincerely hope to join Daybreak and resist the world government together. Even if I am asked to do something trivial, I am willing to, please give me a chance. As he spoke, Vander knelt on the ground, his face full of humble requests. Anyone who saw this scene would feel that he was extremely sincere. Even Lin Chen hesitated for a moment. This guy has asked for it several times, and his position is to unite all those who can unite. It seems that Vander does meet the requirements, but he cannot be a core member of Daybreak. He can only be a member of Daybreak, like Tiger. Forces do things. Seeing the hesitation on Lin Chen's face, Vander felt a little excited, but his face still looked humble and sincere. In his opinion, as long as he can join Daybreak, his status in the Fishman Island will be equally noble. On the contrary, as the previous generation rulers of the Fishman Island, Otahime Shirahoshi's status will be extremely embarrassing. But one thing is certain, they will definitely have a bad life, and then as a member of Daybreak, I will have a lot of room to operate secretly. Just as the Dragon Palace became quiet and everyone was waiting for Lin Chen to speak, a low voice suddenly came from the outside world. Woo. The sound was extremely deep and sounded extremely stressful. It did not seem like the sound emitted by ordinary creatures. Help. Shirahoshi's small voice came out, attracting everyone present. Shirahoshi, what's wrong with you? Otahime looked worried as she looked at Shirahoshi's current weak appearance. At the same time, the deep voice outside also made her extremely worried. Mom, they will help us. Neptune's eyes suddenly opened wide, and he said anxiously, who are they? As if they had thought of something, Neptune and Otahime looked at each other, their eyes full of excitement. Vander, who was kneeling on the ground, suddenly smiled. As he thought, Shirahoshi was really the legendary Poseidon. Under his control, a big conflict broke out between Tiger and Otahime, and he secretly wounded Otahime. The young Shirahoshi burst out with a faint wave, which immediately attracted a group of sea kings. Those sea kings just swept Tiger with their tails, and Tiger was seriously injured. All of this was seen by him, which was why he was obsessed with Shirahoshi. Now seeing this scene again, he was even more excited, because this time the sea kings summoned by Shirahoshi were just as strong as the last time. Lin Chen got up and went outside. A pair of huge eyes in the distance were staring at this place, giving people a strong sense of oppression. At the same time, under the induction of his observation Haki, more sea kings seemed to be coming. After glancing at Shirahoshi, Lin Chen said to Otahime with some solemnity, let her stop this ability. Otahime was a little unmoved. In her opinion, these sea kings might be able to drive away Lin Chen and his gang, thereby restoring their rule over the Fishman Island. Seeing that Otahime didn't move, Lin Chen scolded, do you think I'm afraid of these sea kings? Shirahoshi is so young now that she can't control this power at all. Do you want to see her die if you let her continue to summon her now? Stupid. Quote. As he spoke, Lin Chen immediately walked over to Shirahoshi and frowned at Shirahoshi's extremely weak appearance. Otahime seemed to have thought of something, and was instantly shocked. When she saw Shirahoshi's face turning pale, she couldn't help crying. Shirahoshi, stop this power. Mom, I'm afraid. Seeing that Shirahoshi seemed a little violent, Lin Chen estimated that Shirahoshi might die due to lack of physical strength if things continued like this. There are costs to using any ability, and Shirahoshi summoning so many sea kings at such a young age is a serious strain on the body. Without hesitation, Lin Chen immediately used the pupil technique to control Shirahoshi, and Shirahoshi also lost consciousness at this moment. Seeing Shirahoshi's appearance, Otahime immediately panicked, grabbed Lin Chen's clothes with both hands and cried, what's wrong with Shirahoshi? Please let Shirahoshi go. Lin Chen had no good way. He could only use this method to cut off Shirahoshi's connection with the Sea Kings, but this also caused the Sea Kings outside to riot. In their world, Shirahoshi was still contacting them 1 second, and then silenced them the next, which made them instantly restless. Letting go of Otahime's hand, Lin Chen immediately came outside the palace. Crocodile and the others also rushed back, staring at the Sea Kings in front of them with solemn eyes. This is at the bottom of the sea. For them, if a battle breaks out on the bottom of the sea and they make a mistake, the consequences will be unimaginable. What to do? Seeing that the people around him were a little nervous, Lin Chen signaled them to calm down, and a powerful conqueror's haki immediately erupted from his body. Seeing this, Rayleigh also burst out haki along with Lin Chen, hoping to use this method to push back these Sea Kings. Under the two people's conqueror's haki, many small Sea Kings showed fear on their faces and finally left here. But there are still some who stayed unmoved. Looking at them, these Sea Kings are all extremely huge Sea Kings, with a size of more than 1,000 meters. Seeing that the eyes of these Sea Kings already had wisdom that was no less than that of humans, Lin Chen's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice was firm and loud. Leave here immediately. Otherwise, die. Hearing Lin Chen's voice, the Sea King's eyes showed a hint of ridicule, but they still stopped in place without moving. Seeing this, Lin Chen's Mangekyo slowly turned, and the complete Susanoo appeared on him, and came face to face with these Sea Kings. Under the protection of Susanoo, the seawater naturally posed no threat to him. The power of wood style is greatly reduced under 10,000 meters of seawater. The pressure from the seawater alone makes these branches feel like they are sinking into the quagmire. To deal with these Sea Kings, dust escape is the best attack method. The dust escape released by Susanoo is much more powerful than what he released individually. It is impossible to say whether it will be exposed now. If we don't take action to drive away these Sea Kings, the consequences will be disastrous. Those Sea Kings were surprised for a moment when they saw Lin Chen's Susanoo, but they still didn't take it to heart. The size of several hundred meters was not enough for them to squeeze between their teeth. Seeing the disdainful looks in the eyes of this group of Sea Kings, Lin Chen chuckled. These Sea Kings refused to eat or drink as a punishment. Do they really think they can do whatever they want with their huge size? Thinking of this, Lin Chen's chakra burst out with all its strength. Susanoo immediately stretched out 4 hands and pulled out 2 giant chakra blades. It was only then that the group of Sea Kings felt waves of oppression from Lin Chen. If you don't leave now, then don't leave. Dust escape. Super original stripping technique. Each hand held a chakra blade and slashed hard. The other 2 Susanoo hands did not stop. They faced these sea kings with both hands, and a huge beam of light appeared in the palms of their hands. Whoosh. Chapter 96. Calm down. Advertise here. The extremely dazzling white light was even visible to everyone on the Fishman Island, and then a beam of light rushed straight towards a super giant sea kings. This white light penetrated the sea like a thunderbolt, and also penetrated the body of sea kings in an instant. The super giant sea kings in front of Lin Chen didn't even have time to escape before most of its body was wiped out. It penetrated from the head to the tail behind it. Countless red blood flowed out, dyeing the surrounding seawater red. Then Lin Chen maintained his momentum and swept the light beam in his hand towards the other sea kings. Having learned from the past, these sea kings did not dare to be careless anymore and immediately began to turn around to avoid it. However, such a huge size also destined them not to move too quickly, and they died one after another under Lin Chen's escape. The other sea kings who were not affected immediately panicked when they saw this, and turned around and fled in panic with a look of horror in their eyes. If they stayed, they would probably be cut into sashimi. When Lin Chen saw the other sea kings running for their lives, he also stopped what he was doing. Wherever Chen Dun went, the sea water was wiped out, revealing a vacuum area. After Lin Chen stopped, the rest of the sea water poured into this area, causing waves. Seeing the sea kings being driven away by Lin Chen, Crocodile and the others breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the crisis had been resolved, but what made them a little confused was why the sea kings attacked the Fishman Island for no reason. Or are these sea kings here just for a certain person? Only the Rayleigh people who were present at the time looked vaguely at Shirahoshi, who was sleeping beside him. From the words of Lin Chen and Otahime, they also discovered that this incident seemed to have a lot to do with Shirahoshi. After Lin Chen dismissed Susanoo, he also came to the palace again. After looking at the sleeping Shirahoshi, Lin Chen said, Rosinant, go and settle the Shirahoshi family first. Don't embarrass them. Rosinant nodded and left the palace with a few people. Then Lin Chen looked at Crocodile and the others and said, you continue to execute according to the previous plan, but Lao Sha, wait a moment until everything in the Fishman Island settles down. Declare that the Fishman Island belongs to us. Lin Chen also temporarily decided to let Crocodile take a break in order to prevent anything from going wrong during this period. During this period, the Fishman Island is destined to be closed, and no one from the outside will be allowed to intervene until everything in the Fishman Island is unstable. After all the factors have been cleared, it is not too late to announce the matter. Everything went on as planned, and Lin Chen once again set his sights on Vander. To be honest, he didn't want to pay attention to this guy. This guy always looked at Shirahoshi with a hint of vulgarity. After thinking about it, Lin Chen looked at Vander and said, raise your head and look at me. Vander didn't know why, but he still looked up at Lin Chen. The moment his eyes came into contact with Lin Chen, Vander was controlled. What is your purpose here today? Vander's eyes were dull and he said slowly, I designed it to make both Tiger and Otahime suffer. After Tiger was imprisoned, my biggest resistance disappeared. Before, I was just using Tiger as a pawn so that I could come. Seize the power of the Fishman Island. On the way here today, I heard the news that Tiger was brought from prison, and finally met the legendary Dawn. Lin Chen frowned and asked again, what do you think about Shirahoshi? There was a moment of struggle on Vander's face, but it disappeared immediately, and he said blankly, Shirahoshi is the legendary mermaid princess, who has the ability to talk to the deep-sea sea kings. She will definitely become the most beautiful woman in the world in the future. I want to marry Shirahoshi and control her power. Crocodile on the side gave Vander a disgusted look, but he had to admire him in his heart. If they hadn't come here today, the Fishman Island might have really changed hands. Then Lin Chen asked the last question. There should be no one in the Fishman Island who was the opponent of the Sun Pirates. Why did Tiger fail? Where are the other Sun Pirates? Vander said. Tiger was injured by the Sea Kings summoned by Shirahoshi. Everyone in the Sun Pirates was deceived by me, thinking that I came to rescue Tiger, and had already gone to Fishman Street to gather forces to help me. As soon as Vander finished speaking, there was a noise outside the Dragon Palace gate. Let me in. I must kill that guy Vander. Lin Chen glanced at the fat blue man outside the door and said, let him in. As soon as Jinbei entered the palace, he found Vander kneeling on the ground. He was immediately furious and wanted to attack Vander with his fist. Immediately afterwards, Jinbei was stopped by Tiger who followed him. Don't be impulsive, Jinbei. Everything depends on Madara-sama's arrangements. After hearing Tiger's words, Jinbei's eyes regained some clarity, and he looked at Lin Chen on the stage with a look of reverence. Then Tiger explained to Lin Chen again that it turned out that when Jinbei gathered a large number of people to rush into the Dragon Palace, he happened to be bumped into by Tiger. Tiger also wondered why Jinbei appeared here. When the two people explained their respective situations, they immediately understood that this was all Vander's method, and the scene just happened. After thinking about it, Lin Chen released Vander's control. After a while, Vander looked confused, not understanding what had just happened. When he saw Tiger and Jinbei beside him, there was a trace of panic on his face, but it quickly disappeared. He continued to bow to Lin Chen and said, please let me join you, Master Madara. Even if you let me do it a dog. Lin Chen showed a sneer when he heard Fanda's words. Not everyone can be a dog at dawn. Looking at Tiger and Jinbei, Lin Chen said, I'll leave him to you. I never want to see him again. After saying all this, Lin Chen stood up and left the palace, leaving Fander with an indifferent back. After hearing Lin Chen's words, Fanda was stunned for a moment, and then his face turned pale. Madara-sama, Madara-sama, give me a chance. Please tell me what I did wrong. Crocodile looked at Fander's eyes with a hint of coldness, and said, You bastard. You have revealed all the filth in your heart, what do you think? Hearing Crocodile's words, Vander paused, and his face slowly turned deathly silent. He didn't understand that he just wanted to seek his own little benefit. Was he wrong? Fanda was destined not to get this answer, and the sound of Tiger and Jinbei clenching their fists could already be heard in his ears. As for the consequences for him and his men, one can imagine. Chapter 97 The New Look of the Fishman Island. Lin Chen didn't know what happened in the palace behind. Anyway, he never saw Fander and his men again. At this time, he was with Otahime. Looking at Otahime, whom he had not seen for many years, Lin Chen said, Are you really still sticking to your old ways? Otahime showed a determined look and said, I believe I can make the Fishman Island and humans achieve friendly and peaceful coexistence. Blind violence cannot solve the problem. Hearing Otahime's words, Lin Chen chuckled and said, There is nothing that cannot be solved by violence. If it cannot be solved, then it is not violent enough. What nonsense. Otahime obviously didn't believe Lin Chen's nonsense. In her eyes, only a friendly attitude could bring peace, and violence would only make the hatred between fish and humans continue to spread. Glancing at Shirahoshi, Lin Chen said, Believe it or not, but I believe you will change your mind soon. One more thing, I never said that I wanted to break up the fishmen and humans. I just hope that you, the Fishman Island, can stand by my side and fight against the world government together. Otahime ignored Lin Chen. She was now a prisoner. Even the Fishman Island had been taken away by the man in front of her. No matter how much she said, it was useless. Seeing that Otahime didn't speak, Lin Chen turned to ask about Shirahoshi and said, Shirahoshi is Poseidon. I need her power. Impossible. I will never allow you to take advantage of my daughter. Then I'll kill her. You. Seeing Otahime's angry but powerless look, Lin Chen smiled and said, Princess Otahime, you don't want your daughter to be killed by me. Damn it. What do I have to do to make you let us go? The Fishman Island is already yours. What else do you want? Bullying our mother and daughter is nothing. Lin Chen quickly waved his hands and said, I didn't bully you. Be careful if I sue you for slander. Now you think everything I do is wrong. In the future, you will naturally understand that everything I do is right, and you are the one. Incorrect. After hearing what Lin Chen said, Otahime was angry and ignored him. Seeing this, Lin Chen stood up and left, but before leaving, he said, You will change your mind, soon. Otahime didn't know what kind of medicine Lin Chen was selling in his gourd, but now she just thought Lin Chen was ridiculous. Arriving outside the door, Crocodile crossed his arms and leaned over and asked, How's it going? Lin Chen shook his head, the old woman with steel and iron bones, can't get enough oil and salt, let her be. Crocodile nodded and said, That's right. Anyway, the Fishman Island is also in our hands now. What are you going to do next? After thinking about it, Lin Chen said, Let's stabilize the Fishman Island first. It won't work if no one is watching here. Who do you think is better to stay here? I think those two guys, Tiger and Jinbei, are pretty good. Lin Chen was stunned when he heard Crocodile's words. He was only thinking about the core members of Breaking Dawn, but he really forgot about those two people. If the Fishman Island were to choose high-end combat power, they would probably only have Tiger and Jinbei, and their combat power is reasonable. Moreover, these two people are loyal to Lin Chen, and they are not afraid of a rebellion on the Fishman Island after a few people leave. Especially after Tiger's ideological education, many residents of the Fishman Island regard Dawn as the god who saves them from water and fire. When Tiger took out the video of Daybreak killing Charma Kushung, this group of people even more believed that Lin Chen and the others were great heroes who resisted the world government and celestial dragons, and they all admired them. If Lin Chen asked them to prepare to attack naval headquarters now, they would probably be willing to do it. Some Murlocs who were prejudiced against Lin Chen and the others felt a lot warmer in their hearts after discovering that they really treated Murlocs as equals without any condescending behavior. Lin Chen also took the opportunity to promote a wave of 24 character mantras, which gained the recognition of all the fishmen, and his dominance on the Fishman Island was further consolidated. Finally, Lin Chen made up his mind and said to Crocodile, Then let Tiger and Jinbei stay here. Let's go to New World. But all this must wait until the matter on the Fishman Island is settled. Crocodile nodded and left here immediately. He still had many things to do, unlike Lin Chen who was the hands-off shopkeeper. Time flew by, and months passed in the blink of an eye. During this period, Lin Chen was not idle. He visited many places in the Fishman Island and learned a lot of things, but he did not study it carefully. In his opinion, the strategic location of the Fishman Island is the most important, so he spent a long time building the Fishman Island into a fortress. At this time, the importance of wood style came to light. Lin Chen used wood style to break through many parts of the Fishman Island, which won a lot of praise. In addition, he also strengthened the entrance to the Sabayati archipelago a lot, as well as the entrance to the New World. This has also led to many complaints from people who need to go to New World via the Fishman Island. Lin Chen ignored them and just silently added a stipulation to the Fishman Island notice. Merchant ships heading to the New World through the Fishman Island need to pay a 10% tariff on the value of the goods. Lin Chen will also send good fishmen to escort the merchant ships for a certain distance. Lin Chen also had difficulties with the pirates. In the end, Lin Chen did not take any measures against these pirates and only left a 4-word warning not to cause trouble. At first, he also wanted to plunder these pirate ships, but if it goes on for a long time, it may cause public outrage. After the core personnel of Breaking Dawn leave, the Fishman Island will definitely usher in horrific revenge. There were not many pirates heading to the New World from Sabayati Archipelago, and Lin Chen turned a blind eye to this. Sooner or later, he would deal with these pirates, but not now. Crocodile was confused about this. Why not let pirates pay the same fees as merchant ships? Lin Chen's answer to this was also very simple. If they asked the merchant ship to pay the fee, they would naturally escort the merchant ship for a certain distance, and the route would be much safer. It was worth it in the eyes of both parties. After all, merchant ships in the past were likely to be looted as soon as they passed the Fishman Island. Lin Chen's rule brought a certain guarantee to their safety. This was a win-win situation. But if you ask a pirate to pay the property, the pirate's source of income depends on plunder. After you ask him to pay, he will turn around and rob more innocent people. And the pirate's money is only so little. Compared with the merchant ship's return, it's better to ignore them. After Lin Chen set the rules, just these few months brought Lin Chen a lot of profits, but only a small part was pocketed by him, and most of them were put into the Fishman Island to improve the Fishman Island life, facilities and a series of things. Chapter 98 Entering the New World. Advertise here. When everything in the Fishman Island was proceeding in an orderly manner, Lin Chen also gathered everyone together. Now the Fishman Island has almost been dealt with. Lao Sha can make an announcement tomorrow. Furthermore, we are discussing the candidates to stay at the Fishman Island. Let Tiger and Jinbei do it. You two are also interested in the Fishman Island. Very familiar. After hearing Lin Chen's words, everyone had no objections. Tiger and Jinbei were a little anxious and said, Boss Madara, are you leaving? Can't you take us with you? Lin Chen shook his head, looked at the two of them and said, this trip to New World is just to deal with a small matter. We will come back if there is time. Thinking of Otahime and the others, Lin Chen continued to say to Tiger, be gentle with Otahime and the others. Although we have conflicts with them now, I think there is still room for maneuver. Sooner or later, Otahime will change her mind. Neptune is slowly accepting this, but she is still persistent. I really don't know what to say to her. Lin Chen thought of Shirahoshi's huge size, and estimated that he could eat a lot in one meal, and added, in addition, the living supplies should be according to their previous standards. Shirahoshi has a big appetite, so you should pay attention to it. After finally confirming that there was nothing missing, Lin Chen and Tiger Jinbei finalized the matter of the Fishman Island, and the meeting ended. Several people came outside the Dragon Palace and looked at the Fishman Island in front of them, which was very different from a few months ago. A burst of pride arose in their hearts. This was their family background, and maybe it would also be their base to fight against the world government in the future. Arriving at the entrance to New World, Lin Chen and others followed the flow of people and left the Fishman Island, heading to the area filled with the most vicious pirates in the world, New World. There were violent storms, thunder and lightning, and dark clouds. This kind of weather made Monet and others who had never been to New World very curious, but Lin Chen, Rayleigh, and Crocodile were used to it, and they had all visited here when they were young. After inviting Sha Tang and Luo to go into the house to take shelter from the rain and be careful of catching a cold, Lin Chen stood in the house and shouted to Crocodile, who was turning the rudder in the heavy rain outside, Lao Sha. Remember to go to Dressrosa. Don't deviate from the course. Crocodile's face was covered with rainwater, and he held a soaked cigar in his mouth and said coldly, disappear immediately before I want to beat you up. Okay. After agreeing, Lin Chen turned to Monet and said, Monet, I want to drink milk tea. Give me a drink too, it's really delicious. Sister, I want it too. Rayleigh and Sugar also ordered a drink without hesitation. Monet smiled slightly and prepared the portions for Rosinante and Luo. Crocodile silently controlled the rudder outside, and the corner of his mouth twitched. His voice could be very small, but he still wanted to let himself hear it. Wasn't Lin Chen doing this on purpose? As for Enel, who was charging the ship in the boiler room, knew nothing of course. Uncle Shaw, here, Crocodile, who was dazed, heard a waxy sound coming from beside him. He turned around and saw Xiao Zhu Tang standing next to him holding an umbrella and holding a cup of hot milk tea in his hand. Hey, be a good boy and look at you. Why are you running out here when it's raining so heavily outside? I'm not afraid. I even brought Uncle Shaw an umbrella that can block the rain. Crocodile used sand to absorb all the water from his body and then picked up Sugar. Sugar also worked hard to hold an umbrella to protect Crocodile from the rain. It tastes good. Taking a sip of hot milk tea, Crocodile showed a happy smile on his face. Seeing this, Sha Tang's eyes narrowed with joy, and he said with a smile, I made this cup. I know Uncle Sha likes sweet things, so I put 2 handfuls of sugar in it. Looking at Granu's small hand, Crocodile felt a warm feeling in his heart. He placed his forehead on Granu's head and twisted, and Granu also chuckled. Ha 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 ha, Xiaozu Tang is my uncle's caring little cotton padded jacket. On the other hand, Enel was not left behind in the boiler room, and he also brought a cup of milk tea. Here's your milk tea. Oh, thank you. When can I go back? Have no idea. Quote. Although Enel has been charging the ship in the boiler room, this has also increased the speed of the ship a lot. After a period of sailing, Lin Chen and others finally saw Dressrosa. Looking at Dressrosa in front of him, Lin Chen said to Crocodile beside him, Are you sure Doflamingo is here? Crocodile lit a cigar, his face full of confidence. I am the intelligence chief of Daybreak. You don't believe me. But as if he remembered something, the confidence on Crocodile's face disappeared a bit, and he said, Currently, we only know that their Don Quixote family is here, and the information inside is difficult to get in. Doflamingo has also made this place very strict over the years. Woolen cloth. After thinking about it, Lin Chen said, Go directly to the island and find Doflamingo. Today's Don Quixote family is like an ant in front of the dawn, so Lin Chen does not intend to shrink back and prepares to go directly to the Don Quixote family to catch Doflamingo off guard. Leaving Monet on the boat to watch Sugar and Luo, Lin Chen and others quickly rushed into Dressrosa. With Enel's powerful knowledge, everyone quickly found the location of the Don Quixote family's residence. Doflamingo. Long time no see. Doflamingo, who was discussing matters with his family members, suddenly heard someone calling him by his first name. He was a little annoyed at first, but when he heard the familiar voice, he immediately became a little panicked. When he turned around and saw those familiar figures, his pupils shrank suddenly. Ha, it's you all from Daybreak. I haven't seen you for several years. Seeing Doflamingo's smiling face, Lin Chen walked up to him and said condescendingly, I haven't seen you for so many years and you are still like this. It's boring. Doflamingo looked at the man in front of him, feeling annoyed but not daring to resist. He changed the subject with a curl of his lips and said, What are you doing to come to me this time? You have killed celestial dragons now, and you still dare to show up here in a big way, without fear of being caught. Has anyone discovered it? A few days ago, it was announced that the Fishman Island belongs to you. Do you have any plans? Hearing Doflamingo bite you one by one, Lin Chen put his hand on Doflamingo's shoulder and smiled. Look at how many talents you are talking about. If it didn't work out, you would have joined us at Daybreak. Don't be afraid, even though you are also a celestial dragons. But I won't kill you yet. Doflamingo took a breath. This guy still spoke like this. He could always say scary words in a joking tone. But thinking that Lin Chen could even do such a thing as killing celestial dragons in public, he did not dare to refute Lin Chen at this time and said, You are right, we are accomplices, and I am also a member of Daybreak, so you are looking for me, what's matter? Lin Chen's lips were half smiling, and he leaned into Doflamingo's ear and said, I want gold from the sky. There was a power outage tonight, and half of the code for another chapter is gone. I'll post it tomorrow. Sorry, chapter 99 Heavenly Gold. Advertise here. Hearing Lin Chen's words, Doflamingo's heart suddenly turned cold. He stared at Lin Chen with his eyes, as if he wanted to see something from his face. If nothing else, the purpose of this meeting between him and his cadres was to hijack Heavenly Gold in exchange for the status of 7 Warlords of the Sea. As long as he changes his identity as the 7 Warlords of the Sea, his plan in Dressrosa will be a complete success. This is obviously the territory of their Don Quixote family, how could they allow others to rule here for such a long time? But Lin Chen's appearance disrupted his position, especially when he heard Lin Chen's words about wanting Heavenly Gold. He even wondered if someone had leaked the news. In fact, Lin Chen just wanted to use Doflamingo's status as a celestial dragons to eat the gold in the sky without any damage. But he knew that Doflamingo used this trick to gain the status of Shichibukai, and the world government could not attack him due to his status as a celestial dragons. In this way, will he be able to use this opportunity to successfully eat the Heavenly Gold? Once successful, it means that Rinnegan can be redeemed. I don't understand what you mean. What does the gold in the sky have to do with me? Hearing that Doflamingo was still pretending to be stupid, Lin Chen's arm around Doflamingo suddenly exerted force and strangled his neck tightly, which also made the surrounding cadres instantly assume a fighting posture. Let go of the young master. Crocodile and the others were not idle, and directly knocked down these people in twos and twos. Lin Chen looked at the defeated cadre in front of him and said to Doflamingo, You have no choice now. Either do it, or I will control you to do it. Do you know why we abandoned Golden Lion? Hearing Lin Chen's words, Doflamingo began to be filled with fear, and said with a purple face, I will do it, let me go. After releasing his arms, Doflamingo held his throat and gasped. His eyes under his sunglasses were full of fear. He almost felt that his neck would be broken by Lin Chen, just a little bit. Very good. Those who understand current affairs are heroes. We are all in the same camp. There is no need to be so tense. Doflamingo curled his lips slightly. He had no choice but to fight against Lin Chen, a kind of knife thrower. He couldn't beat him again and again, and he couldn't talk about it. He could only avoid him, but he didn't expect that after so many years, he would come to his door. Looking at Doflamingo, Lin Chen asked, "Do you have any information about Tianjin?" Doflamingo knew that Lin Chen could investigate this kind of thing even if he didn't tell it, so he had no choice but to say, "There is a batch of sky gold from New World recently, and the route will pass through Dressrosa." "Very well, I'll let you stay with us for now." Glancing at the Don Quixote family cadres who fell on the ground, Lin Chen said, "Don't worry about these cadres, but don't let them come and disturb us, otherwise don't blame us if they die." A trace of inexplicable hatred flashed in Doflamingo's eyes, but he immediately concealed it and said respectfully, "Yes, I will tell them." Looking at Doflamingo who suddenly became respectful, Lin Chen didn't bother to pay attention to him. "As long as you help me this time, I can no longer pursue the previous unpleasantness and just follow me." Doflamingo looked down at the ground without speaking. Occasionally he raised his head and glanced at Rocinante. However, when the two met again, they felt that each other had changed a lot. Seeing that it was getting late, Lin Chen took Doflamingo back to the boat. Monet was also busy cooking and greeting everyone. The atmosphere at the dinner table was quite relaxed, but Doflamingo remained silent. Even if Rocinante took the initiative to talk to Doflamingo, all he got in return was Doflamingo's cold expression. Although everything failed to attract Doflamingo's attention, the figures of Sugar and Luo still attracted him. He did not expect that there were actually two children in the morning. Time passed by minute by second, and soon everyone received news of the golden ship in the sky. It was estimated that it would pass Dressrosa in 1 or 2 days. Lin Chen had already made all the preparations with everyone, and his plan was very simple. He just asked Doflamingo to hold the heavenly gold hostage in exchange for Shichibukai's position. It was very different from Doflamingo's original plan. Doflamingo also gradually changed from resisting at the beginning to reluctantly accepting it. Lin Chen obtains Tianshengjian, and Doflamingo obtains the status of Shichibukai. Both of them win-win, and all he needs to consider is to make up a credible excuse for the disappearance of Tianshengjian. Early in the morning 2 days later, several world government ships slowly sailed towards Dressrosa. They were going to stay here for a short period of time and collect the country's heavenly gold. This is also the last stop. Once the collection is completed, this batch of precious heavenly gold can be handed over to the world government. Just as Lin Chen planned from the beginning, Doflamingo and his people quickly arrived in front of the world government's ship. "Who is that person in front of you? Get back immediately." Seeing the person in front of him warning him, Doflamingo burst into laughter. "Bah, I am Don Quixote Doflamingo. Go back and tell the world government that if you want to get gold from revolving heaven, use Shichibukai's position in exchange." The marine general who escorted the heavenly gold this time stepped forward to check the situation, and soon learned what happened. He was none other than one of the marine alternate admirals, Jaji. "What's going on? Why are there people intercepting them? If they can't be driven away, then kill them on the spot." The surrounding members of the World Government Organization broke into cold sweat when they heard Jaji's words, and quickly said, "You can't take action. He is a member of the Don Quixote family, and we have no right to take action against the celestial dragons." Hearing the words of the people around him, Jaji looked ugly. "Doesn't this mean that this batch of heavenly gold will be hijacked?" Doflamingo looked at the group of people on the opposite boat, curled his lips, and directly led people to hijack the ship containing the sky gold to Dressrosa. The people around him had no choice but to rush back to world government to report the news. Jaji could only call naval headquarters, and the reply he got was simple. "Marine will not interfere in the internal conflicts of celestial dragons, everything will be handled by the world government." During the time when the world government people and Marine were away, Lin Chen also came to the ship containing the gold cargo from the sky. Looking at the dazzling array of treasures in front of him, Lin Chen arranged for everyone to be on guard outside the door, while he began to absorb these treasures and convert them into his own points. It didn't take long for Lin Chen to absorb all the heavenly gold goods. Most of them were valuable items, and only a few were berry, but this also brought Lin Chen huge income. Taking into account the property he had previously obtained at the Fishman Island, Lin Chen looked at the points on his panel that could be used to purchase Rinnegan and smiled, feeling quite happy in his heart. Chapter 99 Heavenly Gold. Advertise here. Hearing Lin Chen's words, Doflamingo's heart suddenly turned cold. He stared at Lin Chen with his eyes, as if he wanted to see something from his face. If nothing else, the purpose of this meeting between him and his cadres was to hijack heavenly gold in exchange for the status of 7 warlords of the sea. As long as he changes his identity as the 7 warlords of the sea, his plan in Dressrosa will be a complete success. This is obviously the territory of their Don Quixote family, how could they allow others to rule here for such a long time? But Lin Chen's appearance disrupted his position, especially when he heard Lin Chen's words about wanting heavenly gold. He even wondered if someone had leaked the news. In fact, Lin Chen just wanted to use Doflamingo's status as a celestial dragons to eat the gold in the sky without any damage. But he knew that Doflamingo used this trick to gain the status of Shichibukai, and the world government could not attack him due to his status as a celestial dragons. In this way, will he be able to use this opportunity to successfully eat the heavenly gold? Once successful, it means that Rinnegan can be redeemed. I don't understand what you mean. What does the gold in the sky have to do with me? Hearing that Doflamingo was still pretending to be stupid, Lin Chen's arm around Doflamingo suddenly exerted force and strangled his neck tightly, which also made the surrounding cadres instantly assume a fighting posture. Let go of the young master. Crocodile and the others were not idle, and directly knocked down these people in twos and twos. Lin Chen looked at the defeated cadre in front of him and said to Doflamingo, "You have no choice now. Either do it, or I will control you to do it. Do you know why we abandoned Golden Lion?" Hearing Lin Chen's words, Doflamingo began to be filled with fear, and said with a purple face, I will do it, let me go." After releasing his arms, Doflamingo held his throat and gasped. His eyes under his sunglasses were full of fear. He almost felt that his neck would be broken by Lin Chen, just a little bit. Very good. Those who understand current affairs are heroes. We are all in the same camp. There is no need to be so tense. Doflamingo curled his lips slightly. He had no choice but to fight against Lin Chen, a kind of knife thrower. He couldn't beat him again and again, and he couldn't talk about it. He could only avoid him, but he didn't expect that after so many years, he would come to his door. Looking at Doflamingo, Lin Chen asked, "Do you have any information about Tianjin?" Doflamingo knew that Lin Chen could investigate this kind of thing even if he didn't tell it, so he had no choice but to say, "There is a batch of sky gold from New World recently, and the route will pass through Dressrosa." "Very well, I'll let you stay with us for now." Glancing at the Don Quixote family cadres who fell on the ground, Lin Chen said, "Don't worry about these cadres, but don't let them come and disturb us, otherwise don't blame us if they die." A trace of inexplicable hatred flashed in Doflamingo's eyes, but he immediately concealed it and said respectfully, "Yes, I will tell them." Looking at Doflamingo who suddenly became respectful, Lin Chen didn't bother to pay attention to him. "As long as you help me this time, I can no longer pursue the previous unpleasantness and just follow me." Doflamingo looked down at the ground without speaking. Occasionally he raised his head and glanced at Rosinante. However, when the two met again, they felt that each other had changed a lot. Seeing that it was getting late, Lin Chen took Doflamingo back to the boat. Monet was also busy cooking and greeting everyone. The atmosphere at the dinner table was quite relaxed, but Doflamingo remained silent. Even if Rosinante took the initiative to talk to Doflamingo, all he got in return was Doflamingo's cold expression. Although everything failed to attract Doflamingo's attention, the figures of Sugar and Luo still attracted him. He did not expect that there were actually two children in the morning. Time passed by minute by second, and soon everyone received news of the golden ship in the sky. It was estimated that it would pass Dressrosa in 1 or 2 days. Lin Chen had already made all the preparations with everyone, and his plan was very simple. He just asked Doflamingo to hold the heavenly gold hostage in exchange for Shichibukai's position. It was very different from Doflamingo's original plan. Doflamingo also gradually changed from resisting at the beginning to reluctantly accepting it. Lin Chen obtains Tianshengjian, and Doflamingo obtains the status of Shichibukai. Both of them win-win, and all he needs to consider is to make up a credible excuse for the disappearance of Tianshengjian. Early in the morning 2 days later, several world government ships slowly sailed towards Dressrosa. They were going to stay here for a short period of time and collect the country's heavenly gold. This is also the last stop. Once the collection is completed, this batch of precious heavenly gold can be handed over to the world government. Just as Lin Chen planned from the beginning, Doflamingo and his people quickly arrived in front of the world government's ship. "Who is that person in front of you? Get back immediately." Seeing the person in front of him warning him, Doflamingo burst into laughter. "Bah, I am Don Quixote Doflamingo. Go back and tell the world government that if you want to get gold from revolving heaven, use Shichibukai's position in exchange." The marine general who escorted the heavenly gold this time stepped forward to check the situation, and soon learned what happened. He was none other than one of the marine alternate admirals, Jaji. "What's going on? Why are there people intercepting them? If they can't be driven away, then kill them on the spot." The surrounding members of the World Government Organization broke into cold sweat when they heard Jaji's words, and quickly said, "You can't take action. He is a member of the Don Quixote family, and we have no right to take action against the celestial dragons." Hearing the words of the people around him, Jaji looked ugly. "Doesn't this mean that this batch of heavenly gold will be hijacked?" Doflamingo looked at the group of people on the opposite boat, curled his lips, and directly led people to hijack the ship containing the sky gold to Dressrosa. The people around him had no choice but to rush back to world government to report the news. Jaji could only call naval headquarters, and the reply he got was simple. "Marine will not interfere in the internal conflicts of celestial dragons, everything will be handled by the world government." During the time when the world government people and Marine were away, Lin Chen also came to the ship containing the gold cargo from the sky. Looking at the dazzling array of treasures in front of him, Lin Chen arranged for everyone to be on guard outside the door, while he began to absorb these treasures and convert them into his own points. It didn't take long for Lin Chen to absorb all the heavenly gold goods. Most of them were valuable items, and only a few were berry, but this also brought Lin Chen huge income. Taking into account the property he had previously obtained at the Fishman Island, Lin Chen looked at the points on his panel that could be used to purchase Rinnegan and smiled, feeling quite happy in his heart. Chapter 100 Rinnegan. Points. 550,000. This time, heavenly gold probably absorbed more than 400,000 points. It is estimated that the reason is that Dressrosa has not collected heavenly gold yet. However, coupled with some of the previous harvest at the Fishman Island, the huge amount of 550,000 points is now enough for Lin Chen to exchange for Rinnegan. Exchange Rinnegan and Uzumaki physiques. The 550,000 points were instantly cleared, but then Lin Chen felt a slight tingling in his eyes and body. He breathed a long sigh of relief, and when Lin Chen opened his eyes again, his eyes had turned into circles of purple Rinnegan, looking very cold. With the exchange of Uzumaki's physique, the amount of chakra in Lin Chen's body also surged again. All this was to prevent himself from insufficient chakra after using Rinnegan. Although the Uchiha and Senju physiques have brought huge chakra increases, Lin Chen still felt uneasy in exchange for the Uzumaki physique. In Hokage, Nagato did not have the power of Indra and Ashura, so even though he had an Uzumaki physique, he became very overdrawn. Of course, the existence of Konan may also have had a slight impact. This all shows that the consumption of using Rinnegan between the two is very different. After all, Rinnegan is also the product of the combination of the power of Indra and the power of Ashura. Before Lin Chen redeems the two, he can only use it like Nagato. However, this has brought a huge improvement to Lin Chen's strength. Now he is eager to know how strong he is now and whether he has reached the peak of the world. After walking out of the door, Lin Chen glanced around and concealed the aura on his body very well. This also prevented Crocodile and the others from noticing that Lin Chen had reached a higher level now. When Crocodile saw Lin Chen walking out, he couldn't wait to put his head in to see how many treasures there were, but he was soon dumbfounded. Empty. Hearing Crocodile's exclamation, everyone quickly squeezed in, and when they looked at the empty warehouse, their eyes widened. Where's the gold in the sky? Lin Chen stood aside with his arms folded and said, what does the disappearance of the gold in the sky have to do with us? Wasn't it hijacked by Doflamingo? Several people were stunned for a moment, and then looked relieved, but Crocodile still said, forget it, everyone has their own secrets. As he spoke, he glanced at Lin Chen meaningfully. Ever since he joined Daybreak, Lin Chen had been monopolizing money. He saw all this, but he did not pursue where the money went. Then everyone left here, and when Doflamingo came to check that there was not even a hair left on Tianjin, his expression became very embarrassed. This was really a mess that was difficult to deal with. The request he made at the beginning was to take away this batch of heavenly gold in exchange for the Shichibukai position, but now that Lin Chen has eaten all of it, how can he return it? He thought that Lin Chen could still have some left, but he didn't expect that guy so greedy. Doflamingo continued to think about countermeasures, and soon his brows widened. Dressrosa seemed to be able to fill this gap. In the following time, while Lin Chen was familiar with Rinnegan's power, he quietly went to Wanokuni. No one knew what he was doing there. Time passed, and soon the response from the world government arrived. They agreed to give Doflamingo Shichibukai's position, and asked Doflamingo to return the heavenly gold, plus Dressrosa's share. After receiving the news, Doflamingo immediately appeared in front of the king of Dressrosa and threatened him to hand over 5 billion berries, otherwise he would destroy the place. However, Doflamingo's plan had just begun and was strangled to death by Lin Chen, which made Doflamingo feel very sick. On both sides is Dawn, and on the other side is world government. They are both existences that he cannot provoke now, and Dawn is opposite to world government. He feels very uncomfortable being caught in the middle. Madara, we agreed at the beginning that you would take the heavenly gold, and I would take the position of Shichibukai. Now if I don't return the share you swallowed to the world government, how can I obtain the position of Shichibukai? Hearing Doflamingo's words, Lin Chen didn't care at all, and said by the way, what's so rare about that kind of position? Well, how about you follow me sincerely, I will take you to the Holy Land, and then you will trample all the 5 elders under your feet. Down. A trace of disdain flashed in Doflamingo's eyes. Once the real national treasure of the Celestial Dragons was released, these people's so-called ideal of overthrowing the world government was just empty talk. They had no idea how powerful the Celestial Dragons were, which contained 800 years of hidden treasure. Seeing Doflamingo respond with silence, Lin Chen ignored him. Anyway, he was still idle now. He also wanted to see how Doflamingo would respond to this matter, and he had been looking for someone during this time. If that person is really what he thinks, Breaking Dawn is very suitable for him to join, but the only information Lin Chen has is that the person likes to hang out in casinos. His outer clothing makes it easier to identify him. He is just a blind man who likes to pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger. Here Lin Chen was looking for traces of the man while watching the show, while Doflamingo was at a standstill with the world government on the other side. Mariejois. When the five elders looked at Doflamingo's ridiculous reasons, they were so angry that they wanted to eat people. What on earth does this guy want to do? It's clear that the position of Shichibukai has been promised to him, so what's the point of not returning the gold in the sky? HMPH. He was robbed of the heavenly gold for such a low-level reason. Who in this world has the courage to rob the heavenly gold? And wasn't it Doflamingo who robbed the heavenly gold himself? Who took it away under his nose? You can't say it's so deadly. There is still a person who dares to do such a thing. Hearing this, the five elders who had spoken before darkened their expressions. Madara. That guy. Hearing the name Madara, the five people were a little silent, and then one person said, "Didn't I hear that Dawn announced that the Fishman Island belongs to them? How to deal with this matter? The Fishman Island. How can we deal with it now? A group of low-level fishmen, I bet they can't make any waves. But the location of the Fishman Island is the only way to the New World. So what? Do we need to pass the Fishman Island before heading to New World? That's true, but what about those regulations issued at Dawn? Murloc slaves are the majority of the slave market. If it is really banned, those celestial dragons will definitely not give up. Does the world government need to be afraid of the Dawn? Does it mean what he says? If you have the ability, mark Mariejois. Let's talk to him personally. I'm sorry he doesn't have the guts. As the five elders talked, many matters were quickly determined one by one, including Doflamingo's request. In a word, there would be no Shichibukai without heavenly gold. Let him decide on his own. Lin Chen also received surprising news here. Tom was arrested. He will be executed at Enies lobby in the near future for building ships for One Piece and Daybreak. Chapter 101 Doflamingo's Ambition. Advertise here. Old Tom has been arrested. I have to go there myself. Lin Chen looked at the newspaper in his hand and said, while pointing at Doflamingo in the distance, keep an eye on that guy and don't let down your guard. He is not as weak as you think. Rayleigh looked at the news of Tom's arrest in the newspaper with a trace of nostalgia in her eyes. That guy Tom, I don't remember how many years ago it was. Let me go there too. Seeing that Rayleigh was about to follow him, Lin Chen said, wouldn't it be the same when I rescue him? Rayleigh waved her hand, her eyes showed a look that you know, and said, can't this pass the Sabayati archipelago? I'm going to see your Aunt Shaki. Hearing Rayleigh's words, Lin Chen curled his lips and said, okay, don't you just miss Aunt Shaki. How can I stop you and not let you go? After that, Lin Chen took out a few more portraits and handed them to Crocodile and Enel, and said, while I'm gone, I'll look for traces of this person. There's a high probability that he'll be wandering around the casino, and he'll probably become our partner. This guy is very strong, don't argue with him. Crocodile looked at the portrait in his hand and nodded. However, the blind man looked kind in his words. He really didn't see how this man was strong, but since Lin Chen said it, he would take it to heart. Finally, after telling Crocodile again, Lin Chen and Rayleigh left Dressrosa and went to Enies lobby. Watching the two people leaving, Crocodile thought about Lin Chen's instructions to him before leaving. Lao Sha, keep an eye on Doflamingo. He has been cornered this time. Be careful and watch out for him. Scratching his head, Crocodile didn't understand. Doflamingo seemed to be giving up his position as Shichibukai. Is it necessary to value such a person who has been suppressed by them from the beginning? Apart from his identity as celestial dragons, Crocodile really couldn't think of this. What value does this guy have? But since Lin Chen said it, he could only do it. Holding the portrait in his hand, Crocodile said to Enel on the side, your fruit is fast, go look for it elsewhere, I will send people from the underground world to search for it. As he spoke, Crocodile picked up the phone and dialed a number. After a while, it rang on the other side, but it was also mixed with a very noisy sound. Boss Shaw, what's the matter? Hearing Tezzolo's words, Crocodile smiled and said, help find someone. We are in Dressrosa now. We will send the photos there. Received. I'm still a little busy here. I'm building the entertainment kingdom that Madara's boss mentioned. Let's wait for the day when it becomes a cash cow. I'll die first. You kid, be careful. Just stay safe and do your work in the underground world. Don't forget that there is an Akoku who has been watching secretly. Don't think that Dawn is now dominating the underground world. Okay, say hello to Boss Madara for me. After hanging up the phone, Crocodile looked at the phone bug in his hand and smiled bitterly. As Tezzolo was his little brother, he still cared about him very much. After a while, someone came to Crocodile, and the photo was spread. I believe there will be results soon. At this time, Doflamingo was in a secret room, looking at Lin Chen's wanted notice on the table, and angrily inserted a knife into Lin Chen's portrait. Damn it, why are you there every time? Young master, Rosinante is outside, he has something to ask you. Hearing the sound coming from outside, Doflamingo's distorted face softened a lot, and he regained his composure after a while. After thinking about it, Doflamingo didn't reject Rosinante again. Let him in. Soon, Rosinante came to Doflamingo's secret room alone. Looking at the brother he had not seen for many years, Rosinante felt a little touched. Seeing that Rocinante was still silent, Doflamingo said coldly, "It's been so long, my dear brother." The word, brother, was bitten very hard, which shocked Rocinante's heart. Rocinante was about to speak when something suddenly occurred to him. Then he skillfully took out a pen and paper from his body and started writing to Doflamingo. "Brother, stop it, don't go on like this." Doflamingo was instantly furious after seeing what Rocinante wrote. "Who do you think you are? Are you great because you joined Dawn? You clearly know that Dawn wants to force me to death, but instead of helping me, you come to make me give up. Isn't this betrayal?" As he spoke, Doflamingo walked up to Rocinante, grabbed Rocinante's neck and pressed it hard against the wall behind him. "What I hate most is betrayal. Especially the betrayal of my family. All betrayers must die." Although Doflamingo's eyes were full of murderous intent, his hands slowly relaxed. "Let's go. I won't kill you just because you are a member of Daybreak. Don't think I'm going to be lenient to you." Rocinante looked at Doflamingo blankly, with a flash of bitterness in his heart, and turned around and left here silently, but he would not give up, because this was his only brother and his only family. Watching Rocinante's leaving figure, Doflamingo's eyes became more and more gloomy. When Rocinante was no longer visible, a voice came from outside. "Young master, there seems to be something going on over there at Dawn." This sentence immediately aroused Doflamingo's vigilance. His position as Shichibukai is gone, and he still owes the world government a lot of gold. Does Li Xiao intend to abandon himself like the Golden Lion? Thinking of the consequences of this incident, and thinking that Golden Lion was still in jail, Doflamingo's heart became twisted, and a bold idea emerged. What happened? Madara and Rayleigh seemed to have left at dawn, and Crocodile and Enel also seemed to have some mission and seemed to be looking for someone. After hearing what his subordinate said, Doflamingo could only think of the first half of the sentence. Madara and Rayleigh left. Although Crocodile, Enel, and Monet cannot be underestimated, the big stone that has been weighing on Doflamingo's heart is finally gone. The strongest man in Breaking Dawn is gone. Does it mean that his supervision has become looser? Thinking that this might be his only chance to escape, Doflamingo became hot in his heart. If he could really escape, he would definitely repay Li Xiao for what he had done to him. Chapter 102 The Conspiracy of the Two. Advertise here. Hey, Joker, why are you calling me? Do me one thing and I'll give you 50% of my property. Oh, tell me. Doflamingo took a deep breath, and then said, I am under house arrest at dawn, help me out. What? Well, you'd better find someone else, I can't afford to mess with Dawn. Madara and Rayleigh are not here. You just need to help me contain the Sand Crocodile and the Thunder God Enel. Oh, I have to think about it. 60%. I'm at great risk here. 70%. How can I trust your words? Come to Dressrosa. Meet and discuss. Be careful of Dawn's probing. I know, I'll be here tomorrow. After hanging up the phone, Doflamingo's face was gloomy, but in order to escape, he felt it was worth it to exchange 70% of the Don Quixote family's property for the man's chance to take action. And his strength is also recognized by Doflamingo. After all, he was once a member of Rock's Pirate, so his strength should not be underestimated. He also carries the reputation of snatching gold from the sky and never returning it. Thinking of this, Doflamingo hates Lin Chen even more. Inviting the family officials, Doflamingo asked, Is there any news about the person Crocodile and the others are looking for? I heard he is a blind man who likes to hang out in casinos. Blind people, gamblers, keep an eye on them. Those who can make them go to war are definitely not ordinary people. If you have any news, tell me immediately. Yes. Early the next morning, just as Doflamingo thought, Enel left here early in the morning and began to look for the person Lin Chen said, while Crocodile stayed here. Although there was no action on the surface, he was actually keeping an eye on him. Follow Doflamingo's every move. Looking at Crocodile in the distance, Doflamingo felt very unhappy. The feeling of being watched was not pleasant at all. However, Enel had already left, which reassured him a lot. Otherwise, with Enel's powerful dog nose, he would have been worried that the next meeting with that person would be discovered. When Doflamingo arrived in his secret room, a cold voice suddenly came from behind him. Hey, I didn't expect you to be put under house arrest by Dawn. Is that person outside Crocodile? He looks pretty good. There was a trace of cold sweat on Doflamingo's forehead. He didn't realize that anyone was behind him, but when he heard the familiar voice, he felt relaxed. Akoku, I didn't expect you to appear here. How long have you been here? It didn't take long, I didn't come until that Thunder Boy left. With his back to Akoku, Doflamingo did not turn around, but said somewhat relaxedly, I'm right, Madara and Rayleigh are not here. As long as you help me hold off Crocodile and Enel, I will take 70% of the Don Quixote family's property with my hands. Offer it up. Akoku's entire body was hidden in the shadows of the secret room, and the faint candlelight illuminated his somewhat gloomy face. What about you? There's also a Monet and Rocinante. Doflamingo smiled evilly, I will handle these two by myself. As long as you help me hold off the other two, it will be fine before Madara and Rayleigh come back. Where are Madara and Rayleigh? Doflamingo took out a newspaper, looked at the news on it and said, "They must have gone to Enies' lobby to save Tom. This is an opportunity that cannot be missed to challenge the world government. They will definitely go there. There is not a month in which they cannot come back." Akoku touched his chin, as if weighing the pros and cons. After a long time, he said, "I want all the Don Quixote family property." "Impossible." Hearing Doflamingo's refusal, Akoku sneered. "Oh, then let's end this matter. I'm going to offend Li Xiao for you. It seems I'm full and have nothing to do." With that said, Akoku was about to leave here, while Doflamingo stood there gritting his teeth, and was caught in a difficult decision for a while. On the one hand, it was the underground power industry that he had worked hard for several years, and on the other hand, he was being held hostage by Don. This feeling made him very painful. Vaguely, Doflamingo thought of what he had always wanted, to return to Mariejois and restore his identity as Celestial Dragons. And in his heart he has always known the secret of the Celestial Dragon's national treasure, if. Thinking of this, Doflamingo gritted his teeth and felt hard in his heart. Since Don showed no mercy, there was no need for him to be controlled by others all the time and to risk his life. "Okay, I'll give you all my property. But you have to keep your word. No matter what, at least you have to buy me one day." Seeing Doflamingo's determination, Akoku was stunned. He really didn't expect Doflamingo to be really willing to give up the industry he had built for so many years. What could be more important than this? But he didn't delve into the secret behind it. After his previous inquiries, he found that although Crocodile's strength was acceptable, it was not enough to fight him. The same was true for Enel. Neither of them could defeat him alone, and he had nothing to do when faced with the two of them joining forces, but his task was just to hold them back, so that would be much easier. Thinking of Doflamingo's industry in the underground world, Akoku's heart felt hot. If he could accept all of this, then he would have the capital to compete with Don in the underground world. Yes, the premise is that I will only help you contain the two of them, and I won't care about anything else. When will we take action? Thinking that the industry he had worked hard for several years would disappear in the future, Doflamingo felt that he might as well use all his chess pieces. Even if some people continued to work undercover, it would be useless. 7 days later. Okay. In the past few days, you should prepare carefully for the handover procedures of those industries. I will be waiting at any time. Ha 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 ha. As he spoke, Akoku's figure slowly disappeared from the secret room, and Doflamingo felt very unwilling to hear the laughter getting farther and farther behind him. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Thinking of the power of the national treasure of Celestial Dragons, Doflamingo had a hard look in his eyes. Don't even think about it at Dawn, and the same goes for Akoku, who took this opportunity to speak loudly. If he could return to Mariejois, inform the 5 elders of Dawn's whereabouts, and confirm that they had been staying at Dressrosa, he dared to believe that the 5 elders would not miss this opportunity. A perfect opportunity to eliminate most of the members of Daybreak. Chapter 103: The Upcoming Execution. Woo, woo. A black line passed on the blue sea, and there was faint steam coming out. Lin Chen sat at the window of the sea train, looking at the endless sea outside the window, and his mood gradually calmed down. "Sir, do you want a newspaper?" In the aisle of the train, a little boy took out a newspaper from his arms and looked at Lin Chen timidly. "Have one, old man Rayleigh, pay for it." Rayleigh looked at Lin Chen a few more times, and only after confirming that Lin Chen was asking her to pay, did she take out a crumpled bunch of berry from her pocket. After looking at the exposed toes on the little boy's shoes, Rayleigh took out a brand new one from berry and handed it to the little boy. Lin Chen took a sip of tea and said without raising his head, "No need to look for it. Let's go back and buy a pair of shoes." A vein was visible on Rayleigh's forehead. He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly with a trembling body. The little boy's eyes curved into a crescent moon, and he bowed to Lin Chen and Rayleigh. "Thank you both, gentlemen." Then he walked briskly to other carriages, and he could still vaguely hear the pleasant voice coming from his mouth. "I have enough money to eat with my mother and brother today." Looking at the newspaper in his hand, Lin Chen frowned rarely. Hokage Mahawk and red-haired Shanks broke out in a sword fight. It is suspected that Hokage Mahawk is better, and he is vaguely known as the world's greatest swordsman. World government expressed disdain for Dawn's announcement to protect the Fishman Island, and explained that Dawn will be destroyed sooner or later. It warned that the Fishman Island has returned to world government. There is still room for relaxation between fish people and humans. Don't follow Dawn and go astray. Go to destruction. The Whitebeard pirates have not yet expressed their attitude towards Daybreak's protection of the Fishman Island. Rumor has it that many people are dissatisfied with Daybreak. Marine officially announced the addition of 2 admiral candidates: Guion, Marine's first female swordsman, code-named Momosugi. Plus, code-named T-Pig. Tom, the legendary shipwright and founder of the Sea Train, will be taken to Enies' lobby for execution in 2 days. He is accused of building ships for Roger and Daybreak. Just as Lin Chen was looking at the newspaper in his hand, several men in black quickly ran past the carriage. One of them even glanced in the direction of Lin Chen and Rayleigh silently, but their faces soon turned pale. A group of people in black robes appeared in the front and rear compartments at the same time, staring at these men in black with unkind expressions. The little boy who had been selling newspapers was hiding in the corner and was too frightened to speak. The leader of the men in black robes was the first to reveal the weapons on his waist, and then immediately rushed towards the men in black. Seeing this, the others also took out their weapons and swarmed forward. Damn it! Fight with them! CP9 is not someone to be trifled with. Seeing this, several men in black were ready to fight to the death, but were soon suppressed by a group of men in black. Lin Chen drank the remaining tea in one gulp, spit out a few bitter tea leaves, stood up and came to the CP9 members, the Rinnegan in his eyes slowly turning. How many people from CP9 are here this time? What is your mission? Has anyone found any traces of me? The number of CP9 dispatches is unknown. Our mission is to monitor all suspicious people around Enies lobby. Currently, only we have discovered the traces of the leaders of Dawn, Madara and Rayleigh, and the others are unknown. Seeing that the man had no effect, Lin Chen nodded lightly. The leader of the black-robed man neatly wiped off the necks of the CP9 members. Then the man took out another piece of paper and handed it to Lin Chen. He disappeared with the remaining people, and even the bloodline fighting around him was wiped clean. Looking at the note in his hand, it contains the distribution of Enies lobby's combat members and a map of the island. There is also a sentence from Crocodile at the end. Everything is normal at the moment. Enel is still looking for traces of that person. Doflamingo has no other actions for the time being. The payment day was yesterday. Seeing this, Lin Chen also relaxed briefly. There was no strong person stationed in Enies lobby this time, and the traces of him and Rayleigh were covered up very secretly. Any member of CP9 who wants to get close to Lin Chen and Rayleigh will be dealt with by members of the underground forces at daybreak. They are also responsible for delivering many messages and constructing a huge information network in the underground world. It can be said that rescuing Tom this time is a sure thing. In addition to testing the power of Rinnegan, this time it can also sweep away the prestige of the world government. It can be said that it kills two birds with one stone. Then Lin Chen turned around and looked at the little boy. The little boy was trembling and speechless. He lowered his head and looked at the tattered shoes on his feet, not daring to raise his head at all. Lin Chen came to the little boy and gently lifted his chin with his hand. A red light flashed in his eyes, and the little boy's eyes slowly became dull. When Lin Chen and Rayleigh left, the little boy slowly regained his clarity. He scratched his head and couldn't understand what had just happened. However, he was still happy when he saw the inexplicable extra photos of Barry in his pocket. With these things in mind, in the coming year, not only will he be able to pay all the gold in the sky, but he will also be able to let his mother and brother buy a few more clothes, and maybe even change his own shoes. Arriving around Enies lobby, Lin Chen arrived a day early because he was afraid something would go wrong. Now it seemed that he only had to wait 2 days to rescue Tom. The next day, early in the morning, Lin Chen spotted a warship approaching slowly in the distance. The flag of the world government on it was particularly eye-catching. Standing in the air and looking down, Lin Chen seemed to have some impression of the leader. He had seen this person several times in the water capital, and it was Spandam. Tom, now that I hand over the Pluton design drawings, I may change my mind a little bit. Do you want to consider it? Dream. Spandam was not angry when he heard Tom's refusal. Tom had refused for so many years. This time he just wanted to see if Tom would change his mind before he died. It's a pity, but based on your crime, I'm afraid no one can save you. Enies lobby has been established for so long, and no prisoner has ever escaped from it. Tom did not speak, but stood quietly on the bow of the boat, looking at the sea train faintly flashing across the sky in the distance, and smiled freely. I have lived for so many years. I have built ships for Roger and Dawn. I was able to build a sea train before I died. I have lived a contented life. It's a pity that I can't see how your world government is subverted by daybreak. So what? You are dying now. Has the Dawn you expected come to save you? I'm afraid they don't even dare to show their faces now. Once the world government discovers the location of the base, they will face destruction. Disaster. To tell you the truth, Marine and the world government have already formulated a plan against the Fishman Island, and everyone who follows Dawn will only end up dead. Tom did not speak, but looked up at the sky as if feeling something. A black shadow flashed across the sky, but when he looked carefully it disappeared. He slowly exhaled, and a dying aura appeared on Tom's body, which made people feel helpless. Chapter 104 Planetary Devastation. Advertise here. Enies lobby, a court acting solely on the will of the world government. The outer layer is surrounded by an iron fence. The entire island can be divided into 4 parts, namely the front island, the main island, the Tower of Justice and the Bridge of Hesitation. There is also the Gate of Justice located at the back of the island. Prisoners who pass through this gate usually never return, symbolizing the absolute justice of the world government. Lin Chen watched Tom being escorted into Enies lobby without making any movement. Rayleigh turned to look at Lin Chen and asked, "Aren't you going to do it now?" Lin Chen glanced at Enies lobby and said, "Don't worry, I have a new idea." Destroy Enies lobby. Rayleigh stared blankly at Lin Chen speechless. Destroying Enies lobby. Is this something that humans can do? Maybe if Roger was still around and he was young. Watching the first front door slowly closing, Lin Chen said to Rayleigh, Tom's safety is entrusted to you. Wait for my signal to rescue Tom. After saying that, Lin Chen disappeared from the spot, leaving Rayleigh alone, who was a little at a loss. Signal? What signal? Seeing that there was no one around him, Rayleigh sighed inwardly. He only hoped that Lin Chen's so-called signal would be more conspicuous tomorrow so that he could take people out. 2 days later, this day was also the day Tom was executed. At this time, he was being escorted to the Tower of Justice, preparing to pass through the Gate of Justice behind it. Tom stood high in the Tower of Justice, with a calm demeanor, no trace of fear on his face, and his eyes calmly staring at the sea in the distance. Standing aside, Spandam said, Sometimes I feel sad that the legendary shipbuilder in this world died like this today. Something would not have happened as I thought. As he spoke, he looked at the CP9s on the side. One of them had a cold face, he was young but his eyes revealed endless murderous intent. Lu Qi, it seems that you are not needed for this mission. You are known as the most powerful man since the establishment of CP9 at a young age. I really want to know how strong you are. Rob Lucci ignored Spandam, his eyes still looking straight into the distance, his whole body thrust into the ground like a sharp sword. Ever since he watched his master die in front of him 6 years ago, he has been holding back a rage in his heart, and he has been training crazily. He has performed many tasks at a young age, and is known as the most powerful person since the establishment of CP9. Strong man. But when he learned that the murderer of his master was Marine and had been killed, the only motivation in his heart slowly disappeared, and he turned into a cold murder weapon. Hidden in the corner, Rayleigh was playing with a few pebbles in his hand. He had been waiting for Lin Chen's so-called signal since early in the morning. It was already noon, but Lin Chen was still nowhere to be seen. If Lin Chen didn't come out, he was going to use stones as weapons to rescue Tom. The scorching sun shone on everyone. Spandam looked up at the dazzling sunshine, and then ordered, Get ready. The crowd hugged Tom and began to move slowly, but at this moment, a roar echoed through the sky, followed by the sirens of the entire Enies lobby echoing in everyone's ears. The phone bug in Spandam's arm suddenly rang, and 2 words kept repeating on the other end of the phone bug. Enemy attack, enemy attack, enemy attack. Spandam was a little flustered when he saw the situation in front of him, but he gradually calmed down after taking a look at Rob Lucci, who was calm at the side. He picked up the phone bug in his hand and asked, Where is the enemy? How many are there? The enemy? There is only one enemy. He is the leader of Daybreak, Madara. Please support. Ah. Hearing the voice on the other side of the phone, Spandam felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on his heart. What a joke. Madara actually came to Enies lobby. Was he trying to kidnap Tom? How could they possibly stop Madara with their meager combat power? Thinking that the Gate of Justice behind him led to the naval headquarters, Spandam immediately took action. Request support from naval headquarters. Report the information here to the world government immediately. After saying all this, Spandam looked at Tom, who was stunned on the spot, his face darkened. Damn it, you were the one who brought that plague god here. Thinking that Madara's purpose might be to kidnap Tom, Spandam drew his sword and wanted to execute Tom on the spot, but soon a stream of light flashed across and hit Spandam's blade steadily. Who? The frightened Spandam turned his head and looked around, while Rob Lucci's eyes also became serious. Yeah, let me, old man, do some exercise. After all, my mission is to protect Tom. That guy has more important things to do. Rayleigh walked out leisurely, throwing a few stones in his hand. Looking at Tom on the high platform, Rayleigh smiled and said, Tom. I haven't seen him in almost 20 years. Tom was stunned when he saw Rayleigh appearing, and then he smiled softly. Since Rayleigh is here, that guy must be here too. It's really nostalgic. Seeing Rayleigh appear on the steps, the people around them turned their artillery to aim at Rayleigh, and several shells immediately flew towards Rayleigh. Rayleigh was not in a hurry, and with a flick of his wrist, the stones in his hand instantly penetrated the cannonballs, hitting the people who fired the cannonballs with unabated force. Seeing this, beads of sweat slowly appeared on Rob Lucci's face, and his whole body began to slowly enlarge, with leopard prints appearing on his body. Rayleigh glanced at Rob Lucci and smiled. A little capable, but not much, just let me move around. The battle on the Tower of Justice was about to begin, but Lin Chen, who was still at the first gate, had no idea that with Rayleigh's presence, Tom's safety could definitely be guaranteed, and his mission was to catch up with Marine and world government reinforcements. Destroy Enies lobby before you come. The people at the first gate looked at Lin Chen, who was alone in the distance, and felt their pressure doubled. The pressure Lin Chen brought to them at this time was unprecedented. Countless guard soldiers swallowed their saliva, and the sweat from their foreheads flowed into their eyes without feeling any pain. The leader gritted his teeth and said as if he had drained all his strength, Fire. Countless shells hit Lin Chen. Seeing this scene, black circles appeared in Lin Chen's eyes. He raised his palms and pointed them forward, without any emotion in his mouth. Shinra Tenzhang. With Lin Chen as the core, a majestic repulsive force spurted out, bouncing away the surrounding cannonballs. Looking at the huge iron gate in front of him, Lin Chen raised his arm and aimed at the gate. Asura rode. The cannon appeared from Lin Chen's arm, and then a powerful beam of light penetrated the door, and the entire door collapsed. Slowly flying high into the sky, Lin Chen came to the main island of Enies lobby, where Tom Rayleigh and others could already be seen from a distance. Lin Chen's body flew higher and higher, which also attracted the attention of people in the distance, and they all stopped to see what Lin Chen was going to do. At this time, Rob Lucci was panting and ignored Lin Chen in the distance. He was looking at Rayleigh in front of him with concentration. Taking a deep breath, Rob Lucci gathered all his strength to attack Rayleigh. Six King's Spear. Rayleigh stretched out two fingers to hold the move coming from Rob Lucci, still smiling. It's a good move, but it's a pity that you are too weak. Spandam covered his abdomen that was pierced by stones and stared at Lin Chen. He really didn't expect that Lin Chen would dare to come to Enies lobby. You know that naval headquarters is very close to here. Is it possible that he really dared to challenge him? The entire naval headquarters. Lin Chen looked at the Enies lobby below with no emotion in his eyes. A black sphere flew out of his hand, followed by an extremely strong gravity, and the building began to be sucked up along with the soil. Planetary Devastation. Chapter 105. Destruction of Enies lobby. A black ball in the sky was faintly glowing, and with its powerful attraction, it attracted everyone's attention. The buildings, trees, and some terrified-looking soldiers on Enies lobby were slowly sucked up to the black ball. The surrounding CP9 members were also struggling to control their bodies. Rob Lucci grabbed Spandam, who was about to be sucked away, and looked around for a place to stay. Rayleigh opened his mouth wide and was speechless. The faint suction coming from his body told him that this was not an illusion. How many abilities does this guy still have? The huge black giant, summoning trees, resurrecting the dead, and now this strange gravity. How many hidden cards does he still have that he has not revealed? Just as Rayleigh was stunned for a moment, Tom's body was sucked up by the strong gravity. Rayleigh reached out and missed Tom's clothes. Just as Rayleigh was about to jump over and catch Tom, Lin Chen also saw this scene and pointed his hand at Tom in midair. Universal pull. Lin Chen didn't care about one thing or the other, and also sucked Rayleigh over. Feeling the suction, Rayleigh resisted a little at first, but relaxed after seeing that she was being sucked in the direction of Lin Chen, and the two of them were firmly held in Lin Chen's hand. Rayleigh glanced at the disintegrated Enies lobby and the huge sphere in the sky, and asked helplessly, "Is this your signal?" After taking a look at the big ball that was quickly forming in the sky, Lin Chen set his sights further away, where a white light was quickly coming. "Stop talking nonsense. I guess Kizaru is here. I didn't expect him to be so fast." Leaving the Flying Thunder God Warlock on the two of them, Lin Chen continued, "You two leave first, I will handle the follow-up matters. I will catch up when the time comes, don't worry about me." After that, Lin Chen sent the two away from here, and Kizaru also rushed here at this time. How terrible. Looking at the huge sphere in the sky and the constant gravity pulling on him in the air, Kizaru was also a little surprised. He touched his chin and looked at the broken island below. Kizaru wondered, where is Enies lobby? But soon Kizaru saw Rob Lucci dragging Spandam and jumping around. At this time, Rob Lucci was just relying on his remaining strength to find a place to stay in the disappearing land. But according to the next trend, soon the two of them will have no place to stay. Once Enies lobby is completely destroyed, the consequences for the two of them will be destined to be either sucked up or buried in the sea. The air echoed with the wails of countless soldiers, but they were soon covered by boulders. There were also some giants among them, but most of their bodies were still outside. It was only a matter of time before they were completely covered. Kizaru did not rush to save people, but stared at Lin Chen in front of him with a solemn expression, ready to elementalize at any time. In his perception, Lin Chen's strength has already posed a very strong threat to him, and he has been able to determine that the destruction of Enies lobby and the sphere that is constantly emitting gravity in the sky are Lin Chen's handiwork. First it's manipulating trees, and then it's such a weird move, it's really a headache. He said he had a terrible headache, but Kizaru didn't stop. Behind him were the incoming reinforcements. He wanted to try his best to test Lin Chen's new moves and see if he could keep him. 8-foot beautiful Magatama. Countless light spots flashed in the sky, and these light bullets locked onto Lin Chen's figure as if they were equipped with radar. Lin Chen squinted his eyes. These things really dazzled his eyes. Shinra Tenzhang. Gently raising his hand, Lin Chen easily broke Kizaru's move, which made Kizaru's expression serious again. Seeing Kizaru taking the initiative, Lin Chen naturally would not stand and be beaten. He aimed his hand in Kizaru's direction, and then a strong gravitational force was emitted. Universal pull. Feeling this gravitational force, Kizaru was about to activate his ability to escape but found that his body was flying towards Lin Chen uncontrollably. The strong gravity pulled hard on his elemental body, but he had no way to do anything about it. Tian Kong Yun sword. In an instant, Kizaru immediately made a counterattack. He decided to take the risk and take this opportunity to rush towards Lin Chen. Shinra Tenzhang. Boom. Kizaru, who was prepared to rush towards Lin Chen, was caught off guard and pushed out by a strong repulsive force, which also caused his waist to be hit hard. Before Kizaru could take a breath, a black stick appeared in Lin Chen's hand, and then his hand was aimed at Kizaru again. Universal pull. Lin Chen immediately rushed towards Kizaru while activating his ability. Kizaru felt this familiar gravity and the cold light on Lin Chen's hand, and did not dare to be careless at all. Yada mirror. Finally, when he was about to be stabbed by Lin Chen with a stick, Kizaru dodged past him, and there was a fine drop of sweat on his forehead. What kind of move does this guy have? It's gravity and repulsion. Is that armament hockey on that gangster? The 8-foot Chong Magatama will be blocked by the repulsive force. If you want to fight in close combat, you will be affected by gravity. You can't control your body at all. Once you get close, he will take the initiative. How should you attack? Kizaru kept thinking about offensive moves in his heart, and on the surface he became more wary of Lin Chen. Compared to him, my advantage is speed, just use that move. As if he suddenly thought of something, Kizaru's body suddenly turned into a flash of light and disappeared, and then used the Yada mirror to move around Lin Chen at high speed. Seeing this scene, Lin Chen frowned. Kizaru was indeed very fast. Sometimes he could see many shadows of Kizaru in front of him. It was difficult to determine which one was the real him. Lightspeed kick. Shinra Tenzhang. Kizaru's kick came from behind, but Lin Chen also noticed Kizaru's attack and reacted instantly. Feeling as if something had been bounced away from him, Lin Chen immediately reached out to the place where he was just now. Universal pull. However, nothing happened this time. Kizaru was also a thief. He immediately retreated as soon as he missed a hit and continued to move around Lin Chen. A boring trick. As soon as Lin Chen said this, he saw 8 Kizaru around him aiming their hands at him at the same time. 8 laser beams were shot from Kizaru's hands to attack him almost at the same time. Seeing this, Lin Chen also knew Kizaru's moves and used high speed to attack himself in 8 places at the same time, which also created the illusion he saw now. Just when he wanted to launch the Shenluo Heavenly Conquest, Lin Chen found it a little difficult to do so. Frowning, Lin Chen dodged and left the spot, with several holes appearing in the black robe on his body. Seeing this scene, Kizaru raised his eyebrows, with a thoughtful look in his eyes. At the same time, the figures of 2 people also caught Kizaru's attention. It was Rob Lucci and Spandam who had no place to stay and were attracted to the big ball. It's really troublesome. If I had known better, I shouldn't have agreed to it Aokiji. With a mutter in his mouth, Kizaru immediately walked to Spandam and took the 2 to another place, then continued to confront Lin Chen. Lin Chen looked at the destroyed Enies lobby below, and then looked at the huge black ball in the sky, knowing that the mission was almost completed. Taking one last look at Kizaru, Lin Chen activated Flying Thunder God and disappeared instantly. Watching Lin Chen disappear within the range of his observation haki, Kizaru frowned. How did this person disappear out of thin air? My observation haki is not very strong, but it covers a wide area. As long as someone leaves or escapes, I can feel it to some extent, unless the enemy appears directly from one place to another, but is this possible? Could it be? Chapter 106. Bad News in New World. Advertise here. Not long after Lin Chen left, the planetary devastation slowly stopped producing suction, a huge sphere floated in the air, and Marine's leading support troops also rushed over. When they saw the huge sphere in the sky, they all looked frightened. The impact of this scene on them was too strong. Sengoku slapped his hands heavily on the deck railing, a few drops of cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and looked at the giant ball in the sky with disbelief on his face. In the end, what happened? Kizaru turned into a flash of light and fell next to Sengoku. His tone lost his usual laziness and turned a little serious. It was all caused by Madara alone. There are many Enies lobby soldiers in the sphere. His strength. Sengoku turned his head and looked at Kizaru with burning eyes. Can't you even do anything to him? Kizaru spread his hands and expressed helplessness. He thought about the last scene he felt. He was about to say it but stopped. It would be better to investigate this kind of thing himself. Seeing Kizaru's helpless look, Sengoku clenched his fists tightly. Now Dawn's strength is becoming more and more terrifying, and even their marines are starting to fail. On the one hand, Marine has to maintain the order of the world and pursue pirates everywhere. On the other hand, the world government also regards Marine as an important organization to fight against Dawn, and dispatches Marine Admiral from time to pursue Dawn. As a result, Marine's focus was destined to slowly change from maintaining law and order and catching pirates to fighting Dawn. Even if Sengoku had complaints in his heart, he couldn't say anything in the face of the powerful 5 elders. Hey, let's treat the wounded first. Just save as many as you can. There seems to be hope for those giants, so try to save them. After hearing Sengoku's words, Kizaru dug his ears and looked at the few giants who were still exposed on the sphere. Their whole bodies turned into flashes of light and disappeared. After a while, they could find bursts of roaring sounds coming from the sphere. Seeing this, the others immediately took action. Sengoku looked at the huge sphere in the sky and sighed in his heart. If that child was still there, with his potential, today's Marine might not be like this. When did it start? Even Marine, who has always been just, has slowly begun to become just a tool in the hands of the world government. Or is that really the essence of Marine? Thinking of that scene in Marineford, Thinking that Lin Chen's unwilling roar was still in his ears, thinking that Garp almost broke with him, thinking that the world has become increasingly chaotic since Li Xiao was born, and even the junior Rosinant, who he regarded as his own son, also. At this moment, Sengoku felt that he was very tired and his shoulders were a lot heavier. Zephyr did not care about the world, and Garp acted according to the justice in his heart. He had few old friends with whom he could talk. Thinking about it, Sengoku swayed and leaned heavily on the railing. Marshal Sengoku. Hearing the exclamations of the people around him, Sengoku waved his hands and said in a low voice, "I'm fine." Secretly stroking his chest, Sengoku's eyes fell into a trace of confusion, but he regained his composure. He is the marshal of the naval headquarters and cannot show vulnerability at any time. If he becomes weak and powerless, then this justice in the world will cease to exist. His eyes glanced at the people behind him, especially for a moment on Guion, who was stunned on the spot, and on the other side who kept looking at Guion. Maybe it's time for me to promote young people, maybe just like Lin Chen back then. But will Guion be able to be a marine admiral with peace of mind? Doesn't she have other thoughts in her mind? Sengoku doesn't know all this, but now it's time to have to. Maybe after a while, he should submit this report to the world government. Guion felt Sengoku's gaze, but she ignored it. She only regretted that she didn't rush over earlier, maybe she could see Lin Chen. Lin Chen doesn't care how Marine handles the follow-up. He is now taking Tom and Rayleigh to return to the Fishman Island. Old Tom, we haven't seen you for a few years. How are you? Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect you to really come to save me. I was already prepared to die. Tom looked at Lin Chen and laughed. No matter what, it is always good to be immortal. Lin Chen winked at Rayleigh, and Rayleigh said understandingly, Tom, we have been friends for a few years. We don't want to hide it. How about you come with us? Seeing Rayleigh's exit, Lin Chen also said, now you and we have become a thorn in the world government's side, you might as well follow us. Bring your apprentice here too, be careful of being retaliated by the world government. It just so happens that the Fishman Island is also counting our foothold, you are no stranger there. Hearing Lin Chen's words, Tom's face turned a little gloomy. Seeing this, Lin Chen was a little confused and asked, what's wrong? Tom sighed and said, in order to stop the sea train that took me away, Fram has. Hearing Tom's words, Lin Chen was shocked at first, but after thinking for a while, he soon felt relieved. After thinking about it, Lin Chen still asked, first of all, please tell me the crime of being escorted to Enies' lobby this time. Bar. Tom was a little confused, but he still told Lin Chen truthfully. After listening to Tom's story, Lin Chen breathed a sigh of relief and said, if I had known this, I should have killed Spandam directly. But don't worry, Frame is fine. He will meet him in the future. My friend, he knows you are still alive and will come back to you sooner or later, so don't worry. Tom wanted to ask something else but was stopped by Lin Chen. I know what you want to say, but trust me, okay. Seeing this, Tom also dispelled his doubts. Maybe as Lin Chen said, they will meet again in the future. After a while, Lin Chen also slowed down after detecting that there were no marine pursuers. It was not until a few days later that they arrived at the Sabayati archipelago. Going further forward was the Fishman Island. During this period, Crocodile had been sending messages to him through the underground world. At least as of yesterday, everything was normal, but Enel still couldn't find that person. Leaving Rayleigh alone to find Shaki, Lin Chen was too lazy to watch old man Rayleigh's twilight love affair. He quickly left here with Tom and went to the Fishman Island. Just when Lin Chen left, there was an unknown warehouse in Sabayati archipelago, where many men in black robes gathered, and beside them there was a man covered in bloodline who was holding a piece of paper tremblingly. Save Boss Shaw. New World's message was intercepted and disguised by Heavenly Yaksha and Akoku, and the message was delayed for 3 days. When others saw the content on the note, they all fell into a daze and turned pale. Soon a panic broke out among the people in black robes, and many of them felt that this matter was beyond their imagination. Hurry! Go find Boss Madara. Why was the communication with New World cut off? Our news was delayed for 3 days. Today's news was actually 3 days ago, so Boss Shaw and the others. It's all damn Doflamingo and Akoku. They joined forces. They cut off the connection with New World and disguised themselves. 3 days ago they attacked Boss Sand. Don't panic. Find Mr. Madara Yamato Rayleigh immediately and inform them of the situation in New World. Brothers, we must also prepare for war. Akoku from XXX is here to provoke us at dawn. We also contact Mr. Long to see if we can join forces to attack Beehive Island. Chapter 107. Everyone is frustrated. 3 days ago, Dressrosa country. Crocodile was looking at Doflamingo in the distance with a depressed expression. Doflamingo has been under his surveillance these past few days, and he has not made any small moves. Although he is enjoying himself, he has had enough of this kind of life, and he only hopes that Lin Chen can come back soon. Doflamingo, who was far away, looked at Crocodile and snorted, his face looking very ugly. Noticing Doflamingo's expression, Crocodile didn't bother to pay attention to him and turned his head to the other side impatiently, but soon a smile appeared on his face. Little Sugar, why do you have time to play with your uncle today? Reaching out and hugging Sugar in his arms, Crocodile rubbed his somewhat hard stubble on Sugar's face, causing Sugar to avoid him for a while. Don't prick me with your beard, it itch. After hearing what Granu said, Crocodile put her on the ground, touched her head and asked, Where's Luo? Didn't I go out to play with you today? Sugar seemed to have remembered something, grabbed Crocodile's big hand, pulled Crocodile closer and said cautiously, Brother Luo and I met a bad guy yesterday when we went out to play. What? Crocodile's heart suddenly rose, he squatted down and looked at the Sugar carefully, and asked, What's going on, tell uncle. Sartang thought for a while, gestured in the air with his fingers, and said, There are a lot of bad uncles in black clothes. Brother Luo discovered it when Brother Luo and I were passing through a small alley. He asked me not to talk and then took me with him. Come out. After listening to Sugar's description, Crocodile's eyes suddenly became extremely sharp, but he hid them in his eyes and did not let Sugar find out. Gently pinching Sugar's fleshy little face, Crocodile asked with a smile, Can you tell uncle where those bad guys appeared? And where did Luo go? You two have been together these days, lie. You are not a good boy. Sugar looked down at the ground, stirring the skirt of her clothes with her fingers, and finally her face became visibly disappointed. Those bad guys are in the city. Brother Luo told Sister Monet about this when he came back. Sister Monet was going to punish the bad guys, and Brother Luo had to follow, but they didn't take me, so I came to see my uncle. Crocodile was shocked in his heart, but he relaxed after thinking of Monet's strength. He picked up Sugar and placed it on top of his head. Crocodile said, Uncle won't be angry. Can you take uncle to see the place you mentioned? Sugar grabbed Crocodile's ear and pointed in a direction. Before leaving, Crocodile glanced at Doflamingo in the distance, frowned and then relaxed. Doflamingo has been under his surveillance for so many days. If the Don Quixote family was not sick, they would not come to provoke them, so he planned to go and see for himself. It happened to be a boring few days and it was a relief. It would be bad if people from other forces were targeting Don. After all, it is easy to hide from open guns and hard to prevent hidden arrows. Luo and Sugar are both children without fighting ability. Even if Monet can follow them two every day, sometimes it is inevitable. Negligence, it would be much safer for the two children to deal with the threat early. In the distance, Doflamingo watched Crocodile and Sugar slowly disappear. The corners of his mouth slowly began to crack, and finally he revealed a crazy silent smile that made people shudder. Akoku, don't let me down. While Doflamingo was still trembling and laughing crazily, Rocinante came to him again at some unknown time, still carrying out his daily persuasion. But this time, what he saw was no longer Doflamingo's gloomy and unhappy face, but the naked madness in his eyes and the ultimate killing intent directed at him. Rocinante, my dear brother. Doflamingo roared this sentence from his throat almost as if he was gritting his teeth, and then countless white threads emerged from his hands and suddenly rushed towards Rocinante. On the other side, Crocodile also came to the alley she was talking about under the guidance of Sugar. Standing at the intersection and looking in, the alley is like the abyss of a long snake. There seem to be many unknown things hidden in the darkness. Even the sunlight outside can hardly illuminate this alley. Crocodile stood at the entrance of the alley and frowned as he looked into the alley. After releasing observation, Hockey found nothing after feeling it. At the same time, he also found no trace of Monet and Luo. Xiaozu Tang, are you sure Monet and Luo are really here? Sugar looked at the alley in front of her with some doubts, but nodded heavily. Well, this is where Brother Luo and I were stared at by many bad guys yesterday. After receiving Sugar's confirmation, Crocodile did not hesitate, but the crocodile on his shoulder slowly opened its mouth, and a field of sand formed around him, especially the layers surrounding Sugar. With these spiritual sands, he can react instantly even when faced with danger. Crocodile put down Sugar and held Sugar's hand step by step towards the dark alley. The sunlight stretched the shadows of the two of them, but eventually they disappeared under the sunlight outside and disappeared into the dark shadows. At another similar entrance, Luo touched his head in confusion and said uncertainly, "This doesn't seem to be the same place as yesterday." A few black lines appeared on Monet's forehead, and he said, "How can you not remember? I brought you here specially because you are older than Sugar and your memory should be good." Luo said with some embarrassment, "I don't know either, but I feel like there's something weird here that I can't explain." Hearing Luo's worries, Monet didn't pay attention and said, "It's just a bunch of gangsters. Don't worry. Apart from Brother Shaw and Brother Enel, there is no one stronger than me on this island. But I don't know about Doflamingo. Let's test our strength when we have a chance in the future. Okay, go in and go back after I deal with this group of minions. I have to cook later." As she said this, Monet was about to take Luo in, but at this moment she stopped. The surroundings were too quiet. It seemed that no one had appeared since she brought Luo here. Tap, tread, tread. There was a heavy footsteps behind her, and Monet was startled. She turned around and looked at the man with Luo who behind her, but she breathed a sigh of relief after seeing the face of the man in front of her clearly. "Rocinante, why are you here?" Monet looked at Rocinante who was smiling and saying nothing with some confusion. As if she thought of something, she continued, you came just in time. Come with me quickly to see what's going on. There's something weird around here. With that said, Monet walked straight towards Rocinante, seemingly unprepared. The moment Monet approached Rocinante, Rocinante punched Monet in the abdomen without warning. Boom. When Rocinante was about to hit, ice crystals extended from Monet's abdomen to resist the blow, and she scolded with a solemn expression. I've already seen that something is wrong with you, what's going on? Pooch. A streak of bloodline suddenly fell on Monet's face, leaving a trace of confusion in her eyes, but the pain in her abdomen told her that it was all true. Looking down, she saw a thick white silk thread wrapped around armament hockey, penetrating Rocinante from her back, and then piercing her abdomen. She never expected that she would encounter such an attack. After being attacked, Monet reacted immediately and backed away despite the pain. The white silk thread was stained with Monet's bloodline. On the other side, Rocinante's body hung down weakly, no longer knowing whether he was alive or dead. Monet covered his abdomen and protected Luo behind him, and at this moment a strange laughter appeared, and Doflamingo walked out with a huge smile on his face. Bah! The crazy laughter released the repression in Doflamingo's heart during this period, and the fierce murderous intention in his body even suppressed Monet's body with Conqueror's hockey. Behind Doflamingo, there seemed to be a giant scarlet beast roaring at him, and even the surrounding air became much thicker. The huge pressure made Monet's face turn pale, and a thin stream of sweat appeared on his forehead, and he felt deep in his heart. Deep suffocation. Chapter 108 Monet vs Doflamingo. Advertise here. Sister Monet. Seeing Monet being attacked, Luo was a little frightened. At the same time, Rocinante, who didn't know whether he was alive or dead, also made his heart rise. Doflamingo, you guy. Doflamingo looked at Luo, a cruel smile quickly appeared on his face. So it was you. Was it Rocinante who took you out in the first place? You must have eaten that op fruit too. Bringing you back to Mariejois can be considered a bit of a bargaining chip, blah blah blah. Monet blocked Luo behind him with one hand, and an ice blade slowly emerged from one hand. He looked at Doflamingo solemnly, and snowflakes were faintly blowing around his body. Doflamingo stepped on Rocinante's feet, manipulated 5 white silk threads with one hand, looked at the two of them with a grin, and then grabbed Monet and the two directly. Ding! The sound of the ice blade colliding with the silk thread was heard. After the two briefly collided, Monet stepped back and pulled Luo Yi away with him. Monet was squatting on the ground, gasping for air, and the wound on his abdomen opened more due to the movement of his body. This is not the way to go. At least I have to buy Luo time to escape, and Rocinante, no matter what, even if he dies, I will get his body back. After making up his mind, Monet stretched out his hand to cover his abdomen. Soon the wound was frozen, and the pain on his body was relieved a lot. Luo, later you run back to the boat along the path. I don't know what happened now. Use the phone to call for help. Brother Shaw has been staring at Doflamingo. Now that he appears here, Brother Shaw may be in trouble. Remember, stop and don't look back. Sister Monet, if you want to drag me down then you can stay here. Monet's scolding made Luo hold back what he wanted to say next, and turned to stare at Doflamingo angrily. You really don't take me seriously. Doflamingo in the distance could naturally hear the two talking and immediately launched a move to attack. Super Whip. A thick white line swept towards the two of them, easily tearing open buildings wherever it went. Seeing this, Monet slapped his hands on the ground, and an extremely strong blizzard appeared around his body, surrounding the two of them. Snowstorm. There was a roar, and the snowstorm around Monet spread instantly, and even the sky became dark. At the same time, these inconspicuous small snowflakes became extremely sharp, and suddenly struck Doflamingo. Luo, run. After saying this, snow crystals appeared all over Monet's body, forming an extremely hard crystal layer on her elbows, fists, calves, neck and other parts. Then she rushed towards Doflamingo instantly. Her physical skills over the years have not been in vain. Practiced. The powerful blizzard blocked Doflamingo's sight. Although he was able to fight with observation hockey, he was still somewhat uncomfortable. I didn't expect this guy to have such a trick. He still underestimated her. Feeling that Luo was escaping, Doflamingo had no choice but to use birdcage to trap the opponent. However, he was not prepared enough, and in his sense of sight and color, Monet had already rushed over. Looking down at Rocinante on the ground, Doflamingo showed a gloomy smile, and then manipulated Rocinante's body to face Monet, and an identical body appeared next to him at some point. I won't be careless this time. With these words behind him, Doflamingo disappeared into the blizzard, leaving only a clone that was left behind. What happened? As if she sensed something, Monet looked at a void position with a puzzled look, but soon she found Rocinante rushing towards her, which forced her to come back to her senses and prepare to fight, and put aside her thoughts just now. Throw it aside. Despicable guy. Boom. After slapping Rocinante with a palm and feeling the weak heartbeat, Monet waved his hand to freeze Rocinante's wounds, and then cut off the extremely fine threads on his body. Ba bang bang. As expected of a member of Breaking Dawn, he still has such a fighting IQ after being seriously injured. It's not bad. Doflamingo clapped his hands and walked out. Monet's eyes widened. Countless snowflakes scraped on Doflamingo's body. Unfortunately, there was only a ping ping pong pong sound and did not cause any harm to Doflamingo. Monet felt a little depressed when he saw that the snowflakes had no effect on Doflamingo. Slowly exhaling a white breath, Monet's eyebrows and hair were already covered with a layer of white frost. Stop talking nonsense and let me see what capital you have to attack us. Whoosh. After saying this, Monet immediately rushed towards Doflamingo. The crystal layer on his fist attached to armament hockey and attacked Doflamingo, setting off a gust of punches. The two of them fought several times within a few breaths, and their movements were so fast that it was difficult to notice. During this period, Doflamingo condensed white lines to attack Monet many times, but was blocked by Monet with snow crystals, which made Doflamingo a little anxious. Why can she catch my attack trajectory every time? Damn it. Fortunately, her attack distance is not as far as mine, otherwise it would be really difficult. Although Monet had a slight advantage in physical skills, his short hands could only force Doflamingo back continuously, but he was unable to cause effective damage. The two continued to fight. During the battle, Doflamingo glanced at the surrounding blizzard with his peripheral vision, and vaguely understood something in his heart. These snowflakes are like her eyes, that's it. At the same time, Doflamingo also observed that Monet's condition began to deteriorate. The long-term freezing of the wound also made her blood flow somewhat sluggish, and her face turned pale. Snapped. Monet swept Doflamingo with another whip leg, but it was instantly blocked by the thread in his hand. Then Monet turned his palm into a blade and struck Doflamingo's neck hard. Seeing that Monet's palm was still more than halfway away from touching him, Doflamingo was also a little confused. Is this guy exhausted now? But soon his pupils shrank suddenly, and the snowflakes in the air that he had not noticed all the time condensed into an ice blade from Monet's hand, and the cold light flashed across Doflamingo's neck in an instant. That's too late. Before armament hockey could attach itself to the neck, a human head suddenly flew up. Seeing Doflamingo being beheaded by himself, Monet was relieved. Everything was just as he planned. First, he showed his shortcomings, making him mistakenly think that he could not attack him, and at the same time, he let his guard down against the snowflakes that were always in the air, and finally decapitated him with a sudden blow. Seeing Doflamingo's head fall to the ground like this, Monet suddenly paused and his heart became hung up again. Why? No blood. When she saw the wriggling white thread on Doflamingo's severed head on the ground, her eyes were suddenly shocked. That's when. Bullet string. There was a voice from behind, and then Monet felt a stinging pain like needles in his back. If you don't hide, you'll die. Monet forcibly condensed layers of ice behind his back, but these layers of ice were instantly pierced like paper. Puff. Monet spat out a line of blood, and the bright red bloodline was particularly eye-catching on the snow-white ground. At this time, her back and limbs were all pierced, Doflamingo's silk threads nailed her to the ground, and the wound on her abdomen was torn open again, making her look extremely miserable. But if she hadn't spent all her energy to form the hardest layer of ice on her neck, she might have died on the spot. The huge pain from her body stimulated Monet's nerves, veins popped out on her forehead, and her eyes were bloodshot, but she just gritted her teeth and remained silent. After swallowing a few broken teeth in her mouth, Monet turned her head and stared at Doflamingo in the sky, and she also knew why she didn't sense his presence. It was precisely because Doflamingo was hiding in the clouds in the sky and he was distracted by Rocinante's attack that he failed to discover this clue and was ultimately defeated by Doflamingo. Not bad performance. If you were in a state of complete victory, I might not be able to defeat you. It's a pity, bah. Coming from the clouds in the sky to the seriously injured Monet, Doflamingo grabbed Monet's head, looked at Rocinante on the other side, and said with a smile, maybe your life is more valuable. As he spoke, he picked up the two of them and slowly disappeared into the buildings. The blizzard in the sky also slowly stopped. Only the traces and ice left by the surrounding battles told people what happened here. Chapter 109 Crisis. At the end of the battle between Doflamingo and Monet, the battle between Crocodile and Hancock on the other side has also entered a fever pitch. Sand Falls Burial. As Crocodile shouted loudly, countless amounts of sand emerged from the alley and headed straight towards Hancock. The buildings along the sand's path had a tendency to be deserted. Seeing the endless sand rushing toward him, Hancock's brows furrowed together, and his body kept turning to avoid it. But it was just a little tricky for him, not unmanageable. Barton. Hancock shouted into the void, and soon there was a dull sound. Got it, boss. As the dull sound fell, the winding alleys seemed to come alive, crisscrossing around like a twisted snake, and Hancock gradually disappeared into these wriggling alleys. Seeing Hancock disappearing, Crocodile immediately chased after him. Don't run. However, the surrounding alleys changed faster than Crocodile could imagine, and he soon became lost in these alleys. Demon Fruit Power. Crocodile frowned tightly, looking uncertainly at the honeycomb-like alley structure in front of him. Barton, thanks to you, I was able to trick them away this time, but I don't know what's going on with Doflamingo. In front of Hancock was a strong man with a simple and honest face. He touched the back of his head and said dully, Boss, what should we do next? Hearing Barden's voice and feeling the movement of Crocodile wreaking havoc outside, Akoku smiled and said, "Do you remember the little girl Crocodile brought here? If I remember correctly, she seems to have been in the sand next to Crocodile. Those sands protected him very well, but in the end, that little girl is still an ordinary person, and as long as Crocodile is targeted at her, her flaws will definitely be exposed." After saying that, a cruel smile appeared on Akoku's lips. Seeing this, Barden also knew Akoku's plan and said, "Boss, let me use the fruit power to attract Crocodile's attention." Akoku nodded, and the two looked at each other and disappeared into the alley again. While the two were taking action, Crocodile also observed changes in the surrounding environment. At this time, he solidified a small sandbag next to him, and it was none other than granulated sugar. "Xiaozu Tang, Uncle may not be able to take care of you later, so you must be careful." Sugar clenched her little hands in the small sandbag, looked at Crocodile nervously through the gap, and then nodded heavily. As soon as he finished speaking, Crocodile felt a blast of punch coming from the side. Crocodile. Hearing the sound, Crocodile turned around and saw a hole suddenly appeared in the surrounding hive alley, and then Akoku rushed out, his fist shining with black luster, and punched Crocodile. Seeing this, Crocodile immediately rushed forward. While punching the opponent, he condensed a long knife with his other hand. Desert sword. Boom. There was a sound, followed by grains of sand scattered and floating in the air. After a brief pause, the two started fighting again, and the momentum gradually expanded. Even the little sandbag who had been beside Crocodile was gradually pushed to the edge. Luo, who was trying to escape for his life, glanced back in surprise. Just now, he really felt an extremely powerful wave, and soon his pupils shrank. "I saw a huge desert giant slowly standing upright in the distance. From a distance, it blocked the sky and the sun, giving people a heavy sense of oppression. What's even more suffocating is that this desert giant is roaring angrily towards the sky, while its hands continue to destroy the surrounding buildings. It's Uncle Shaw." Luo immediately recognized the identity of this desert giant when he saw it. Who else but Crocodile could summon so much sand to turn into a desert giant? "Uncle Shaw seems to be in a tough fight now, what should I do?" Luo stood there a little anxious. At this moment, he had begun to become anxious. Monet's life and death were unknown because of the separation, and he had also witnessed the tragic situation of Rosinante at the beginning. At this moment, he felt extremely exhausted both physically and mentally. Damn it. Go to Uncle Shaw first, maybe I can still help. Gritting his teeth, Luo also made his choice, turned around and ran quickly towards the desert giant in the distance. Just 10 minutes after Luo's figure disappeared, several black shadows quickly caught up with him. Yes, he probably ran away in the direction of Crocodile. Hurry and capture him and report to the young master. By the way, let's see how Akoku is doing. It seems Crocodile is not easy to deal with either. After the words fell, several people disappeared instantly and rushed towards the desert giant in the distance. Chapter 110, Breaking the Queen. Advertise here. There was still a strong roar of battle in the distance. Luo cautiously approached the battlefield while observing the surrounding environment and being alert to possible attacks at any time. Soon Luo approached the main battlefield where Crocodile and Akoku fought. The scene in front of him was extremely shocking. There were ruins of buildings everywhere, and he could only approach them carefully. Stepping on the sand on the ground, Luo squatted in the shadow of the wall and covered his mouth, not daring to make a sound. Less than 100 meters in front of him, it was Crocodile who had transformed into a desert giant dozens of meters high. At the same time, there was a small black dot that kept attacking Crocodile. The two people fighting in the sky were no ordinary people, and they soon discovered Luo's presence. While attacking the right leg of the desert giant, Akoku laughed and said, "It turns out that the famous sand crocodile is just a guy taking care of children in the morning." Crocodile stood above the desert giant, took out a cigar from his arms and mocked, "To deal with a guy like you, I only need to be responsible for taking care of the children." After saying that, Crocodile imagined Lin Chen's two swords behind Susanoo's back, slowly condensing two sand swords in his desert giant's hands, and immediately swung them towards Akoku. Watch out. Seeing Crocodile's incoming moves, Akoku didn't dare to neglect, and kept jumping in the air with his armament condensed all over his body. But he was also secretly bitter in his heart. He thought that his cooperation with Barden would bring some trouble to Crocodile. Unexpectedly, this guy directly summoned the desert giant and easily destroyed the maze created by Barden, which also forced him to the plan was terminated and he could only show up to fight Crocodile. As for dealing with such a huge guy, Akoku was a little troubled for a while and didn't know what to do. This also gave him a new understanding of Daybreak. Even Crocodile was so difficult to deal with. There was also Enel, and Roger's deputy Pluton Rayleigh, not to mention the most mysterious leader of Dawn, Madara. It seems that this lineup is no less than the Pirate Emperor of New World, or even worse. Crocodile, who was fighting Akoku, was also feeling uncomfortable at this time. He had just taken out a cigar just to confuse Akoku, making him think that he was still able to do it with ease. In fact, controlling this huge desert giant to fight was very draining of his physical strength. Now he was also thinking about a way to retreat. At the same time, He also faintly detected that there seemed to be several tails behind Luo, which also threatened the safety of the two children. Luo had been following Monet, but now only Luo had escaped, and there were pursuers behind him. The reason for this suddenly became clear in his mind. I am afraid that Monet and Rocinante were already fierce at this time. There is less luck. After taking a deep drag on the cigar and slowly exhaling 2 traces of smoke from his nose, Crocodile knew that it was time to make a choice. After looking at the surrounding environment, which had been almost arranged by himself, Crocodile moved the sugar that was protected by a small sandbag from the sand. At the same time, 2 sand arms stretched out from the sand Luo was stepping on to protect Luo. Come over. When Luo looked at the crocodile in front of him, the defense he had been holding on to suddenly collapsed. Uncle Shaw, Sister Monet, Brother Rocinante, woo. Crocodile saw tears welling up in Luo's eyes. He gently touched Luo's head, and then took out sugar. Looking at the 2 children in front of him, Crocodile said softly, "It's okay. Luo, you have to be strong now, and you will take Sister Sugar out later and promise me to be a man, okay?" Luo raised his head with red eyes and looked at the childish-looking Sugar beside him. As if he had made a decision in his heart, he clenched his fists and nodded heavily. Boom. Suddenly, the body of the desert giant the 3 of them were standing on suddenly tilted down. Crocodile frowned inadvertently, but his expression soon returned to normal. Luo was a little worried and wanted to see what happened below, but Crocodile held his hand and continued, "Don't worry, it's okay. I'll tell you what to do later. You must run out with Sister Sugar. Okay. Well, remember not to look back, Enel will definitely come back. You will be safe by then." But, Luo looked at Crocodile worriedly, as if he wanted to say something more, but Crocodile slapped Luo's shoulder heavily with his hand. Luo looked at Crocodile blankly, and the 2 looked at each other in silence. Crocodile glanced at Sugar, and finally looked at Luo and shook his head gently. At this moment, Luo's tears seemed to burst out, but he held them back under Crocodile's gaze, and then shouted unwillingly, "I will definitely protect Sister Sugar. Even if it means blocking my life." Boom. There was another loud sound, and the desert giant's height suddenly shrunk. Seeing this, Crocodile also knew that time was running out. He turned around and looked at Akoku, who was constantly attacking the desert giant's legs, and those who were chasing after Luo. Don Quixote family leader, Crocodile's eyes gradually became firm. "Remember, keep running out and don't look back." After saying this, Crocodile looked at Akoku and others below him, and slowly raised his hands. Under Crocodile's control, suddenly countless amounts of sand slowly began to rise from the ground hundreds of meters around, rushing straight towards the sky. This sand was continuously sprayed out by Crocodile during the battle with Akoku after summoning the desert giant. This was Crocodile's intention. It was with this sand on the ground that he could sense many things. For example, now he has felt that the cadres of the Don Quixote family have entered his territory. In other words, as long as these people are left here, the chances of Luo and Sugar being able to escape will be greatly increased. Akoku and the others were not idlers, and they soon discovered the clues. However, they were also a little confused for a while. This move did not look like an attack move. In this moment of confusion, Crocodile prepared this move. Finish. A thick desert cylinder surrounded everyone, and the sand flowed like sea water. Several people from the Don Quixote family tried to attack, but found that their arms were sucked into the sand, and the power of the attack was also limited. It was scattered a lot by the sand. Akoku was able to break the sand, but what he wanted to do more now was to try and kill Crocodile, who had already aroused some of his interest. At the same time, he also learned from the Don Quixote family that everything was going well with Doflamingo and he could evacuate at any time. But now that he saw Crocodile being cornered by him, he also wanted to have a good time. However, he was not interested in what the Don Quixote family people said about catching the children around Crocodile. He just told them not to hinder his fight, otherwise he would not be merciful. In response, several members of the Don Quixote family could only look at each other and smile bitterly, but did not dare to say anything else. They could only try their best to complete the young master's mission. Chapter 111 Desert. Burial Coffin. Soon a desert column stood upright on the ground. The top was not closed, but the sand was constantly flowing. Standing inside, Crocodile manipulated the sand to open a hole in the desert column to send the 2 of them out, which also gave Akoku an opportunity to take advantage of. Previously, he had broken the legs of the desert giant while Crocodile was comforting the 2 children, and now he went straight to Crocodile himself. "I never thought a guy like you would waste so many opportunities for 2 children. I won't miss it again this time." Feeling the attack from behind, Crocodile looked at the undisguised worry and fear in the eyes of Luo and Sugar in front of him. He still showed a touch of relief, holding a cigar in his mouth and waved to Luo, "Remember our agreement." In the end, Luo and Sugar only saw Crocodile with his arms crossed and a cigar in his mouth, looking relaxed, and then the sand closed up again. The 2 of them slowly fell onto the soft desert. In front of them was a desert column that shot straight into the sky. In the end, they didn't know what was going on inside. When Akoku attacked Crocodile, several members of the Don Quixote family did not stand still. They immediately stepped on the vertically flowing sand to leave from above, but they regretted it the moment their feet stepped into the sand. A strong suction force erupted from the constantly flowing sand, as if they were entering quicksand, which made it difficult for them to move. But one of the men with sunglasses and a bald head was covered with armament hockey, broke free from the quicksand, and then stepped on the air and rushed to the sky step by step. The other people all showed surprised expressions. I didn't expect Vigor to be so strong now. It seems I can only place my hope on him. But to everyone's disappointment, when Vigor was in the air, a lot of sand suddenly rushed out from the surrounding sand walls, weaving a dragnet in the air, and stopped Vigor firmly. A roar also caught their attention, and when they turned their heads to look over, they all had surprised looks on their faces. Akoku brought his face closer to Crocodile, with a wicked smile on his lips, and said with a smile, "It turns out that I'm at the end of my strength. Ha 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 ha. I said I won't miss this time." Crocodile, who had been successfully attacked by Akoku, covered his left arm. There was unstoppable blood between his fingers, dripping to the ground. However, there was no fear on his face at this time, and instead he smiled disdainfully. "This injury is just a common occurrence for me. The battle has just begun now." When he released his hand from covering his left arm, he saw a deep scar on his shoulder, but Crocodile ignored it at all. Instead, he twisted his left arm to confirm whether he could continue to fight. After confirming that there would be some impact but not much, Crocodile raised his head and stared at Akoku, while still smiling with a cigar in his mouth. "Nah, come on, Akoku." As he spoke, Crocodile rushed over first, his eyes filled with unstoppable madness. "Is this guy crazy?" Seeing Crocodile attacking like a madman, Akoku didn't dare to be careless. He also estimated that this was Crocodile's final counterattack. But after thinking about it, Akoku also stepped forward, preparing to use offense as defense. After all, he was in better shape than Crocodile, so he had no reason to be afraid of him. "Come on, Sand Crocodile." Akoku punched Crocodile in the chest. Under armament hockey, Crocodile took the blow forcefully. Even his back was slightly bulging, which showed how cruel this move was. What Akoku didn't expect was that this move was not actually a hit on his part, but that Crocodile had no defense at all, and he was going to hit him. "Got you." In an instant, Crocodile hugged Akoku with both hands and rushed back. The force was so strong that the wound on his left arm was torn open again, but Crocodile had no intention of letting go. He twisted his arm just now to confirm whether it could be used with great force. Now it seemed that as long as it wasn't torn apart, it was still within his tolerance. Akoku is also constantly attacking Crocodile's back, trying to break away from him. No matter what Crocodile's plan is, he can't help but keep retreating, but he is still a little panicked. "Let me go, you lunatic." Crocodile, whose back was constantly being attacked, had no intention of letting go and was still smiling. "Be buried here with me." After saying this, Akoku's face was suddenly covered by a shadow, and cold sweat began to flow from his forehead. Looking up, he saw that the sand wall that he had not taken seriously before had closed the sky above, and at the same time was blasting downwards with a very powerful posture, looking like it was going to kill everyone. A catch-all attitude. Among them, several members of the Don Quixote family began to panic, attacking the surrounding sand walls in an attempt to escape. But if they could see the shape of the desert outside, they would probably feel despair inside. At this moment, the sand in the outside world has been accumulating, gradually taking on the shape of a pyramid. In other words, the sand wall formed by the sand below is thicker, not to mention that the sand is in a state similar to quicksand, which will continuously weaken the attacks it receives, making it appear extremely tough. Akoku, the only one among the people who can break the sand, has been dragged by Crocodile with his life. At this moment, everyone can only watch the desert above pressing towards them with the force of tens of thousands of acres. Desert. Burial coffin. Crocodile's eyes were full of madness. He had already used all the sand he could summon. This move required a very large amount of sand. In fact, the sand crocodile on his shoulder alone could not do this move. But during the initial battle with Akoku, Crocodile discovered that the surrounding buildings had a faint tendency to become desertified. Especially as the battle became more intense, more and more of the surrounding buildings were deserted. Only then was it possible to control so much sand. To complete this move, if he uses what Lin Chen said, I'm afraid his fruit will already be able to affect the surroundings. It's a pity that he hasn't had time to develop the fruit better, but he doesn't regret being able to use this trick for the first time here. After all, it's for Luo and Sugar. It's a pity that he doesn't know if he will be able to see the two of them again. Pity. The endless sand poured down, suppressing the hopes of everyone in Akoku and extinguishing the last spark on the crocodile cigar. Boom. A huge sound spread around, and the faint fluctuations also attracted the attention of Luo and Sugar, who had been running. Keep running back and don't look back. Crocodile's words were still ringing in Luo's ears, but he couldn't help it anymore. He turned his head and looked behind him, but just by looking at it, his tears couldn't stop flowing out. In the distance a desert pyramid stood on the ground, and he knew what it meant. After wiping his tears, Luo picked up Sugar, who was crying beside him, and continued running in one direction. Luo. Brother. Woo, what's wrong with Uncle Shaw? Woo woo woo. Listening to Sha Tang's cry, Luo sniffed, took a deep breath, and said, "Keep running backwards, don't look back, Uncle Sha will be back." Chapter 112 Stealing Apples. Who? Luo ran with granulated sugar for an unknown amount of time, and did not dare to stop until it was almost dark. "Let's take a rest here first." Wiping the sweat off his head, Luo panted and said to Sugar. "Gu." But he didn't expect that Sugar's stomach would growl at the right time. Hearing this sound, Luo, who had never paid much attention to his body, also felt hungry, followed by deep fatigue. But he still held on to his body, his face was only slightly pale, and he did not show too much discomfort. He stood up and looked at his surroundings. He was dizzy from running before, but now he even lost his direction. In the distance is a peaceful residential area that seems unaffected by the previous battle between Crocodile and Akoku. The two of them were on a slope not far from the building. Luo lowered his head and thought about it, and finally gritted his teeth, as if he had made some decision. Looking at Shatang squatting on the ground and holding his stomach, Luo also told Shatang his plan. "Little Sugar, come with me there to find something to eat." After hearing Luo's words, Sugar raised his head and said feebly, "But we have no money." "It's okay. Now we can only fill our stomachs first and wait until Brother Enel comes to find us. Then we can pay them back later." After listening to Luo's words, Sugar rolled his eyes, finally nodded, and the two of them quietly moved towards the distance. The two came to an alley. Outside was a lively market with people shouting, and there were also some worried discussions among them. "I heard that a battle broke out on the east side of the island. I don't know if it's true. I know about this. When my cousin and I went to the port this morning, I felt something was wrong." Hearing that a young man seemed to have news, people around him gathered around him. "Tell me the story." When the young man saw that he was being watched by so many people, he felt a little uneasy in his heart. He turned to talk about it vividly, as if he had also participated in this matter. "Does the Don Quixote family who have been entrenched on the island know? They seem to be fighting with someone else. And my cousin who went to sea earlier has also returned. I heard from him that he saw the legendary Dawn organization's ship at the port. I guess the battle in the east must be related to them." When the people around heard what the young man said, they started discussing it. "Dawn? Is that the same Dawn who executed the celestial dragons in East Blue? Those guys from the Don Quixote family have done so much evil here, and now retribution has finally come. Ha ha ha." The young man listened to everyone's discussion, then coughed and continued, "Don't think about this matter too simply. Dawn, isn't that legendary organization trying to clean up the Don Quixote family? It's easy, but there's a hidden meaning in it, do you understand?" The others once again focused their attention on the young man, and he said again, "Remember the news in the newspaper a week ago? Enies' lobby was destroyed. This was the work of Madara, the leader of Daybreak. And now that the fighting that broke out in the east has lasted for such a long time, it is impossible for Madara to rush back so quickly. It can only be said that there have been too many enemies standing outside at dawn over the years, and they all know it." After saying all this, the young man still showed an incomprehensible expression on his face, which seemed to tell everyone around him that they understood. So the people around me nodded one after another, each talking about his or her own long opinions, summarizing it in one sentence. "Even if you don't understand, you won't understand even if I say it." Until the guard guarding the market shouted, "The market will be closing soon. If you haven't sold out anything, hurry up." Hearing this, everyone who had just been gathering together to talk about world events left and continued with what they were doing. The sesame seed seller continued to sell sesame seed cakes, and the fruit seller continued to shout about fruit. Luo, who was in the alley, had a bitter look on his face after hearing their conversation. He looked at the quiet Sugar beside him and turned his attention to the fruit stall not far from him. Slowly, Luo's face began to feel tired, and then a ball of light suddenly appeared on his hand, and then an apple on the fruit stand in the distance disappeared instantly and appeared in Luo's hand. The fruit stall owner rubbed his eyes with a confused look on his face. "Where's my apple?" Rubbing his eyes again, the fruit stand owner shook his head, thinking he was just dazzled. "Eat the sugar quickly." Luo handed the apple to Sugar and continued to stare at the fruit stand. When the boss turned to greet the guests, Luo activated his ability again, and another apple appeared in his hand, but his face was also a little pale. When Luo Gang wanted to pass the apple to Granu quickly covered his mouth and shook his head. "I don't want it, give it to my brother." Luo didn't hesitate and took a bite of the apple. It was very sweet. And his physical strength also recovered a little, so the two of them hid in the dark. Luo kept using his abilities to steal some food. Slowly, the sky became dark and the market closed. "Hiccup, brother, I'm so full." Sugar patted her belly with a satisfied expression on her face. Seeing this, Luo also laughed from the bottom of his heart. "Okay, as long as you're full, just sleep here tonight." Holding up the discarded cotton cloth around him, Luo took the sugar and hid it among the discarded groceries. Soon Sugar became sad again and whispered, "I miss Uncle Shaw, I miss Sister Monet and Brother Rosinante. If it weren't for those bad guys, Brother Rosinante would be cooking grilled fish for us right now." Quote. After saying all this, Sugar raised his head again, looked at Luo blankly and asked, Brother Luo, what will we do in the future? Why haven't Brother Lin Chen and Uncle Rayleigh come back yet? And Brother Enel, quote. Looking at the sugar in front of him, Luo also knew that she was very scared at this time, but now that he was her last safe haven, he had to be strong. Patting Sanduang's back, Luo Wenwen comforted him. Don't think so much now, Xiaozu, have a good sleep. Brother Enel will be back tomorrow. Brother Lin Chen and Uncle Rayleigh will definitely catch up. Come back. After all, Sugar was still a child. She was also very tired after running for her life for a day. She quickly fell asleep with Luo's comfort. Luo's eyelids were a little heavy as he looked at Sugar, who was sleeping peacefully in front of him. Today I ran away alone again with Sugar, and just now I used my less proficient fruit ability to find something to eat. Now he has reached a critical point. After comforting Sugar to sleep, he finally couldn't resist the sleepiness and fell into a deep sleep. The moonlight gently shone on their faces, and under the same moonlight, the sea that had been calm suddenly stirred up thousands of waves. A ray of lightning headed straight in one direction. Wherever it went, the thunder and lightning did not dissipate on the sea for a long time, as if announcing the anger in the heart of the owner of the lightning. Chapter 113 Support. Faster, faster. Damn it, whoosh. Under the dark night, a lightning flashed on the sea, and its speed kept accelerating. Bulu bulu. Just as Enel was rushing to Dressrosa, the phone in his arms rang. Without slowing down, Enel took out the phone bug that kept shaking its eyes in the wind, looked at the phone bug, and then answered the phone, and the other party's voice also rang. Dressrosa, am I heading east in this direction? Well, that's right. There are crew members on the ship with permanent pointers. Don't worry. Also, I'm sorry, Mr. Yishao, you saw it before. The informant under Brother Shaw found me with a seriously injured body. And you don't know the situation. I've learned something. Forgive me for taking a step forward, I have to rush back. It's okay, I will rush over as soon as possible, and I will try my best. No matter what, the impact of this battle will be very large. I hope it can be stopped in time, even for the innocent people of Dressrosa. Well, it's not convenient to talk on the phone now, I'm going to hurry up. Doo-doo. Enel hung up the phone, speeded up a bit again, and quickly headed towards Dressrosa. At the current speed, he would probably be able to arrive in the middle of the night. On the other side, Yishao was on a fast-moving ship, and his target was also Dressrosa. At this moment, Yishao's face was full of solemnity. He had also heard of the reputation of Daybreak. When he was gambling in the casino yesterday, Enel suddenly came up to him and strongly invited him to join Daybreak. He smiled hesitantly at first. In his opinion, joining this kind of force was not as good as joining Marine. In comparison, Marine was better able to take care of the safety of most civilians. Although Li Xiao claimed to enforce justice, after such a long time, Yi Xiao only felt that everything Li Xiao had experienced was only war. In the Sika country auction incident a few years ago, a country was wiped out in this way, and there was no news about the subsequent results. In his opinion, the citizens of Sika country were probably sacrificed in that battle. Then he heard positive information about Daybreak. Madara saved many people in the Water City, and then the East Blue Sea battle incident spread around the world. This incident also made Li Xiao's identity a mystery. After all, in everyone's eyes, although Dawn had executed the celestial dragons, there were still revolutionary troops and pirates entangled with them. Especially the pirate alliance established by Golden Lion. Although Yi Xiao has never seen many of them, from the mouths of people around him, he can also know that this is a pirate force that can destroy the entire East Blue. Fortunately, it was wiped out by Marine. This did not cause greater confusion. But just as Marine gathered his forces to go to East Blue to deal with the matter, it brought more chaos and evil elsewhere. After all, the main force of Marine was restrained by Dawn's group at that time, and the pirates in other places could be said to be making all sorts of troubles. After experiencing this incident, Yi Xiao's perception of Daybreak had dropped a lot, but after the incident on the Fishman Island, he felt that Daybreak seemed to have another side. All in all, he had very complicated feelings about Daybreak, and he was also very conflicted about leaving for Dressrosa this time. He wanted to get in touch with Dawn to see their true nature, but he also didn't want to have too much contact with this organization that often brought war. But after hearing about the war between Crocodile and Akoku in Dressrosa, he still felt a pity in his heart, not for Crocodile and Akoku, but for the innocent people of Dressrosa. Both of them were well-known strong men in the world. Crocodile, as a user with Logia sand fruit ability, the environment destroyed by the battle must be very huge. He did not want the innocent people of Dressrosa to be affected by this battle. Especially the country of Dressrosa is too weak in front of the three forces of Daybreak, Akoku and Don Quixote family. Being weak means having no right to speak. When the time comes for others to fight in Dressrosa, the consequences will only be borne by Dressrosa herself. Alas. Sighing, he smiled and silently clenched the long sword at his waist. Perhaps this was the first time that he was exposed to the world. He is not for Dawn, nor for Akoku and the Don Quixote family. In today's increasingly chaotic world, he just wants to do something for the weak and innocent people. At this time, Enel could already see the edge of Dressrosa's island, and then he fully deployed his powerful observation haki. Now his knowledge has been able to touch the center of Dressrosa's island and is spreading rapidly towards the east. Found it. Soon Enel's face showed joy. Luo and Sugar had always been marked on their bodies, and he felt the presence of these two little guys in an instant. What Luo and Sugar didn't know was that the entire dawning crowd had actually marked the two of them. Enel pinned two inconspicuous but special pins on their clothes, which always carry a faint electric current that is unique to him, and this is also to make it easier for his observation haki to capture. Lin Chen was more direct and printed the Flying Thunder God Warlock on their clothes. Everyone else also has their own moves, so that they can take care of the two little guys at any time when there is a battle in the future. Enel also breathed a sigh of relief after feeling that the vitality of the two people was only a little sluggish, but overall the problem was not serious. Then observation haki spread more quickly towards the distance, and his heart felt like a basin of cold water was poured on him. In his perception, a huge desert pyramid stands on the east side of the island. It can be said that this move will be familiar to everyone who sees it. They couldn't think of anyone other than Crocodile who could use this move. But Enel was also very scared. This move was something Enel had never seen before. In his observation haki, the east side of the island is completely silent with no sign of life. Then this can mean a lot of things. I'm afraid everything is going in the worst direction for him. Chapter 114 The Dying Crocodile. Late at night, Enel landed gently on the spot where Luo and Sugar were hiding. From the outside, a worn blanket fell on top of a pile of boxes, and a thin figure could be vaguely seen trembling slightly under the blanket. Lifting up the dirty blanket on top, Sugar was sleeping quietly in Luo's arms, but Luo's face still had a trace of flushing, and his body kept shaking. Even when he was sick, Luo's vigilance was still very strong, and he woke up the moment he felt the blanket disappearing from his body. Holding on to his tired body, Luo feebly opened his eyes, and saw a huge black shadow in front of him. Seeing this, he said feebly, "Please don't drive us away, let us rest here for a while, and we will leave when dawn." Luo, I came back late. Hearing this familiar voice, Luo was stunned for a moment, but with a sliver of moonlight, he could see the person in front of him clearly. Brother Enel. When Sandu heard the two people's movements, she also rubbed her eyes and stood up. When she saw Enel clearly, she froze on the spot. Enel said nothing, picked up one in one hand, and then quickly swept towards the east. Luo, what happened? After hearing Enel's words, Luo explained everything in detail, starting from the day before yesterday when he and Sugar met some bad guys, until he ran away with Sugar. Among them, Sugar also added some herself and Crocodile went to find Luo and Monet but met Akoku. I see. After listening to Luo and Sugar's narration, Enel also roughly understood what happened, and his whereabouts became much more careful. For now, it is a mystery whether the Don Quixote family and Akoku's forces are still on the island. At the moment, he can only approach the desert pyramid carefully to see how Crocodile is doing. When Enel got closer to the pyramid, he also discovered some clues. The several black holes on the huge pyramid in front of me are particularly obvious. It is estimated that the people who were trapped here escaped. After sensing the surroundings and confirming that there were no enemies, Enel put Luo and Sugar aside, got up and came to the desert pyramid. Putting his hands on the desert pyramid, Enel did not dare to use large-scale moves, fearing that Crocodile might be injured by himself. After thinking about it, Enel controlled the current in his body to a minimum, almost to the point of being insignificant. Finally, these electric currents crawled on the desert pyramid like small snakes and penetrated along the gaps between the sand grains. Soon Enel's face showed a hint of joy. Good luck. But then his expression hardened. The good news was that he sensed Crocodile, the bad news was that Crocodile was now dying. Lin Chen once told him a lot of useful knowledge about his fruit development, such as electromagnetism, which can make metal exert great explosion and impact. Another example is metal conductivity. This move allows him to manipulate some metal objects in battle and even use metal conductivity to cause damage. But there was another point that he gained a lot from, and that was the weak current in the human body. Enel didn't believe it at first, but it wasn't until he tried it that he was convinced that there really was a weak current in the human body. At first, he didn't understand the purpose of this, but after listening to Lin Chen tell some things about Thunder King and electroshock therapy, he gradually had a new development direction in his mind. Now the weak current he releases is the weakest current that the human body can withstand. With these, he can boldly release it to find Crocodile. But the moment the electric current touched Crocodile, he felt that the electric current on Crocodile's body was extremely weak, and only the last trace of weak electric current remained in the brain. This also means that if he doesn't save him, he will probably die under this desert pyramid. Thinking of this, Enel immediately took action. In order not to affect Crocodile and further injure him while digging the sand, he continued to release weak currents. Slowly, these electric currents spread all over Crocodile's body, only wrapping around the surface of the body without entering. When Crocodile's entire body was wrapped in electricity, Enel also confirmed that the specific injuries all over Crocodile's body were much more serious than he imagined. Then Enel took a deep breath and started his sand digging business. Luo on the side looked at Enel's appearance and guessed that Enel had discovered Crocodile, so he quickly ran over. Sanduang, who was standing there, immediately ran over and dug hard at the sand with his little hands. Brother Enel, I think I can help you. After hearing Luo's words, Enel stopped digging in the sand, turned around and asked in confusion, Huh? Luo said, my op fruit can move items within a certain range. I used this method to steal a lot of food before, but I don't know if I can move Uncle Shaw out. I want to give it a try. After listening to Luo's narration, Enel also thought this was a good idea, but he asked again, but can you sense him? Luo was stunned when he heard Enel's question. Well, let me help you. Maybe this method can help you sense it. Enel seemed to have thought of something, stood up and came to Luo's side, putting his hands on Luo's shoulders. Relax your body. Soon Enel's hands began to burst out with electricity. Unlike the violent thunder and lightning in the battle, these currents looked very gentle, and eventually turned into an electric pillar extending towards the desert pyramid. After being pulled by this current, the current surrounding Crocodile began to slowly move towards this side, and soon the two currents intertwined. In Enel's observation Hokage, Crocodile is already connected to himself through electric currents, and he is even able to slightly affect his body through these electric currents. But he knew that now he should help Luo sense Crocodile, gently touching the biological current in Luo's body, and Luo seemed to feel something consciously or unconsciously. Relax, do you feel it? There seems to be a strange feeling. He slightly increased the current, which also increased the biological current on Luo's body. Feeling this wave, Luo first felt a tingling sensation all over his body, but the next second he screamed in surprise. There seems to be a figure. That's Brother Shaw, it's up to you now. Under this wonderful perception, not observation Hokage, but a little similar, Luo also felt Crocodile with the help of Enel. A ball of light appeared on his hand, Luo gritted his teeth and exerted all his strength, his face was already red. Ah, the op fruit ability is activated, and Crocodile, who was buried in the desert 1 second, appears on the ground the next moment. After doing all this, Luo's eyes turned white and he fell limply into Enel's arms. Seeing this, Enel was also shocked and immediately checked Luo's physical condition. After realizing that Luo was unconscious due to injuries and exhaustion of energy, he also felt a little guilty in his heart, but fortunately Luo was not seriously ill yet. And he also set his sights on Crocodile, who was entangled in electricity on the ground. Chapter 115 Departure. Advertise here. His breathing was weak, his left arm was almost completely broken, his chest was sunken, and there were various large and small scars on his body. But the most serious thing was the left arm that was about to be broken, the big hole in his chest, and the heart that was about to stop beating. Xiaozu Tang, please take care of Luo first. Seeing Sugar taking care of the unconscious Luo, Enel turned to look at Crocodile in front of him. He had to rely on himself to save him now. After gently taking apart Crocodile's clothes, Enel cleaned up some skin wounds, and then focused on Wu Hei's sunken chest and ulcerated left arm. Without rushing to deal with the chest, Enel gently moved Crocodile's left arm. The fascia that was still attached to it immediately made a sound, and the blood vessels that had been drained of blood spurted out several columns of blood again. Damn it, it's better to move Luo out without letting Luo use up his energy and use op fruit to treat him instead of using my half-hearted medical skills. He said this, but his hands did not stop moving, and he put Crocodile's drooping left arm on his shoulder. Looking at the large circle of blood on his shoulder, Enel pulled off a few silk threads from his clothes, controlled the electric current and used these threads to simply sew his arm and shoulder together. While Enel was performing rough surgery, Crocodile's face became paler. When Enel completed the surgery, Crocodile's heartbeat even stopped. I knew it would be like this. Don't worry, Brother Shaw, wait for me to come to you. Electricity condensed on his hand, and Enel stimulated Crocodile's heart without hesitation, causing Crocodile's body to tremble. Once, 2 times, 3 times, finally jumped, phew. Feeling Crocodile's heart beating again, Enel breathed a sigh of relief and did not dare to make the next move. Crocodile was almost killed by himself after just a minor operation, not to mention the more serious injury on his chest. Now he could only use electric current to save Crocodile's heart, and he had to find professionals to treat the rest. After finishing all this, Enel also noticed that a ray of dawn had appeared in the distant sky. He looked at Crocodile's temporarily stable body, and then at the sugar that was shaking his head bit by bit. Enel's heart he also breathed a sigh of relief. After thinking about it, Enel gently woke up Sandu. When he looked at Sandu's tired expression, he felt a flash of distress in his heart. Yes, I'm sorry, Brother Enel, I accidentally fell asleep just now. It's okay, Xiaozu, let's hold on a little longer and get out of here quickly. Then the two took Luo and Crocodile away from here, heading straight towards the hinterland of Dressrosa, where Enel wanted to find the doctor. 2 days later. At this time, Crocodile's body was roughly stable, but he was still in a coma. Enel searched for various doctors in Dressrosa for the past 2 days, but was unable to do anything. Luo finally woke up and thought of a way to use his op fruit ability to let the doctors guide him while he controlled it himself. In the end, he barely saved Crocodile's life. Bulu bulu. The phone bug in Enel's arms rang, and it was a smile after 2 days of no contact. Mr. Yishao, are you here? That's right, I didn't expect that the fluctuations in this battle would be so huge. That desert pyramid puts a lot of pressure on my observation hockey. Oh, I didn't expect that I was still a step too late. I really feel sorry for you, but what is gratifying is that the civilians on the island have not been affected much. This is the only good news. Quote. But now that there is such a big movement, won't you inform your leader Madara? Well, it's a long story. On the one hand, the leader didn't bring a phone bug. We relied on informants all over the world to contact us. It was precisely because of this that our underground forces in New World were destroyed by Akoku and Doflamingo. It's been disconnected, and none of the previous messages have been sent. I see, but you came just in time. I want to ask you one thing. I am about to leave for the Fishman Island. I have not dared to leave here for the past 2 days to treat Crocodile, let alone ask you to take care of my partner. I would be very grateful. It's a small matter, please go as soon as possible. Just leave me your address then. Thank you. After hanging up the phone, Enel looked at Luo and Sugar and told the story. After listening to Enel's description, Luo said, I see, just wait a moment and I'll pick up Uncle Yishao. Brother Enel, please go find Brother Lin Chen. Enel nodded, touched their heads with his hand, and finally told the 2 children's information with a smile. Turning his head to look at the 2 children, whose faces were tender but whose expressions had become extremely tenacious, Enel nodded and turned into a bolt of lightning and left the place. At the same time, Sabayati Archipelago, Shaoqi's rip-off. Mr. Rayleigh, something bad is going on. Rayleigh, who was having a drink with Shaki, heard this sudden call and his beard stood up in anger. What are you yelling about? You didn't see me. When he turned to look at the visitor, he was speechless. The man in front of him had tears streaming down his face, and from his mouth came news that shocked Rayleigh. Mr. Crocodile on Dressrosa, they were attacked. The enemies are the Don Quixote family and Akoku. Now all the news over there has been cut off. They were already asking us for help 3 days ago. The wine glass in his hand fell heavily to the ground. Rayleigh opened her eyes wide and was speechless. What's the result? Is anyone injured? I don't know. I just heard that the battle over there was very fierce. Mr. Crocodile used a move that I have never seen before. I think it can force Mr. Crocodile into such a situation. I guess. After listening to the man's description, Rayleigh stood up suddenly and walked out of the door immediately. Thunder. The words Shaki just said were stuffed back by her, and her heart was already in chaos. Is it another war? Sigh. After murmuring softly, Shaki also sighed heavily.